How's it going, everyone? So today we're gonna be going over Intel's a whole bunch of implementations that they're doing for making sure that they don't have to go through what they went through before. Like I said in the past, it was not just Intel's fault. Motherboard manufacturers had way too much freedom on what they could do with Intel's CPU chips, and that caused degradation and just caused issues and instability overall. That also goes for like RAM manufacturers too, with their XMP. It was just too much, and they just couldn't keep everything stable. So, yeah, I did say this a while ago. So now we got Jay's 2 cents coming out, and bringing out some new facts that actually I have not seen yet. So I searched up a whole bunch of new things, and we're going to be going over that today. So ooh, we'll be going over that today. Maybe I'll wait a little bit about, maybe in about 5 minutes I'll start going over some things. Until then, we can just relax, maybe chat a bit. But yeah, they're implementing a few things. So DLR is one of it, and fmax. We'll be going over the new Ultra 9 processor, the 285K, and a bunch of their implementations that they're going to be doing for from here on out, basically. So that way they don't have to worry about motherboard manufacturers, customers destroying the CPUs and all that, and then them having to eat the warranty, because they did. They ate the warranty, and they made it up, and they're gonna try to make sure that this never happens again. Also, way back with the 18A, which is all for like data centers and massive service centers and that, they're now going to be implementing in 2025 20A. So hopefully more investors will be on board for 20A than the 18A, and hopefully that will help out Intel's market. I'm all for Intel. They've always been good, and like I said, with their warranty and that for the 13 and 14th gen high-end CPUs, not the low end, so like the 13900Ks, KFs, KSs, 14900K, KFs, KSs. Hopefully they don't have to go through this again. So, and also we'll be going over their FIVR, FIVR, not fiber, but FIVR. But hopefully some things change for Intel, and it's all for the better. So we'll make bobblehead me here. We got some Jay's 2 cents, because we're going to be watching some Jay's 2 cents. I'll just add bobblehead me, make bobblehead me like I normally do. Oop, wrong one. Where'd it go? There it is. There we go. We got bobblehead me all up now. I'll just put myself over in the corner here. Nobody puts baby in the corner. Well, I'm putting myself in the corner. There we go. Myself all shitty bobblehead me now. There, so that way we can look fairly good here. I might have to turn up the volume so that way you can hear the Jay's 2 cents video. I will be pausing it and talking about some of the stuff he's talking about, because maybe you don't know what he's actually talking about. There we go. And what we'll do here is we'll test out the sound and all that. Oi, fix it.
So on a high level, one of the reasons why 13th and 14th gen failures were so prevalent, really widespread, is because of the fact that board partners or board vendors like Gigabyte, Asus, MSI, ASRock, they all basically got to like free reign, do whatever they want.
They really did get to do whatever they want. And with Asus, like I said before, in the BIOS, literally in the BIOS screens on the motherboards, they're putting the CPU up to 1.6 volts. This again is only for the 13th and 14th gen high-end CPUs, not the low-end CPUs or the medium tier CPUs. This is for your Enthusiast grade 13900Ks, 14900Ks, those CPUs. Um, yeah, so basically in the BIOS, Asus was making so they went to 1.6 volts, and what was really happening is that they had it set for that because just in case for stability issues, that way it had the voltage and all that. So even on stock settings, it'll be at 1.6 volts in the actual BIOS. So they set that, not Intel set that. They set that in the BIOS, or maybe they messed up with something and it was going to 1.6, but more or less that was for stability issues. There's a lot of stability issues because people didn't know about voltages and stuff like that for the P cores and E cores. 12th gen was really early on that, but they didn't have that kind of setting. Intel did not have that kind of extra setting in the 12th gen, so it wasn't really heard of in the 12th gen. It was in the 13th and 14th gen. And what he's talking about there is a lot of the motherboards set their own voltages for whatever it is that they wanted to do, just for stability issues because they didn't want instability to come back on them. So they used the max settings that Intel had. And max settings for Intel, you basically had to have really good cooling or know what you're doing basically so that way you can tune the CPU a bit more than what the motherboard manufacturer was doing. Because the motherboard manufacturers were literally doing whatever they wanted, and it's not good. It's like you can't have a motherboard vendor do whatever they want just because Intel has this parameter built into the actual CPU. If people are using these CPUs on air cooling, like these high-end CPUs on air cooling, the temperatures will be way too high and it would degrade your CPU because the voltage was too high and the temperature was too high. Doing overclocking, hardcore overclocking, you can be pushing 1.7, 1.8 volts into some CPUs, but the temperature is so low that it was able to actually handle it. That's the thing. If the temperature is way too high and you're putting these voltages into these cores, then of course something's going to go wrong. These temperatures cannot be that high and these voltages cannot be that high because it'll be getting way too hot. And then it will just continue to rise and rise until it hit a actual thermal limit, and the thermal limit was set too high too, in my opinion. It should have been set to around 80, 85 degrees Celsius on these CPUs, but they had it set higher due to the fact that no one's going to have or go out and buy this extreme cooling or really good water cooling loops just to have a good CPU. Um, Enthusiasts know what they're doing, and hardcore overclockers know what they're doing, so they didn't actually have issues with their CPUs. Um, that's one of the things he's talking about here is the motherboard vendors had too much range. They were doing too much with what Intel had implemented. Again, this can also go back on the Ryzen issues too that the Ryzen 7000s were coming out with. Um, Blowing up actual CPUs and motherboards on a certain rail. That's due to the motherboard manufacturers as well. But Ryzen had those implementations put into the actual CPU. So why would the motherboard vendors not want to take advantage of it if it can actually help their stability? But they're doing it, and then later on, people had them put it in these little cases or very little airflow, not good cooling. And what do you know? Issues started to arise.
Even though FIVR existed, which is the fully integrated voltage regulator, which was on chip, the motherboard could still command the CPU to do things outside of the CPU requesting things. So there was a request, and then there was a demand, and the motherboard could override those requests from the CPU and push voltages and stuff to whatever power profiles and such that the board partners and the board vendors wanted to do.
Now, the board vendors can only go to what actual CPU manufacturer implemented into the actual CPU itself. That's why we got the BIOS updates and all stuff like that. So that way, like the microcode updates, made it so that way the motherboard vendors can only go to so much, and then they also tweaked it so that way the stability on the actual degraded CPUs would either fix the issue, or if it didn't fix the issue, you can send in a CPU and get a new one. If they didn't have that CPU, like the 13900K or 13900KF, they would send you a higher up tier, not a lower tier CPU, a higher up tier if you wanted for free. That's the thing about Intel. They actually took steps onto their actual reputation, but people still hammered them for some reason on uh, what they actually implemented, and it wasn't just Intel's fault. The motherboard manufacturers also are to blame. But Intel stepped up and tried to make right, and in my opinion, they did very good on it.
And this competition took place amongst the board vendors because if your board had like secret sauce settings that would make your CPU faster in their board than, say, another brand, it became another level of competition taking place outside of just what the CPU performance itself could do. Unfortunately, Intel did not do a very good job at reining in and putting kind of restrictions in place on how far these board partners could push the CPU.
Again, the restrictions, as in built into the actual CPU, the microcode itself, and all that, they can actually set that into the actual chip itself, and then whatever they have set into that is the maximum that the motherboard manufacturers can actually do right off the bat to make their CPUs all the same throughout all the vendors and all that. But since they had so many different kind of parameters, which is good for us enthusiasts, for overclocking and stuff like that. Like we want those extra parameters so that way we can hit those frequencies that we want. We can actually use the voltages that we want. Now that might change with these newer CPUs. We might be limited, or we might actually have to buy into a higher grade motherboard that will actually allow us to do that. But Intel will have to talk to those motherboard manufacturers and only allow certain things to be done still. Again, this is just being talked about by some of the higher end creators. I talked about this months ago, back when the actual issue was being more or less arose. Intel's issues came out a couple of years ago now, and now has been more well known, basically. But now people are starting to step up and say it's not just Intel's fault. Motherboard manufacturers are to blame. Again, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm not making money and all of that. So I don't mind saying my own opinion. I know what's going on with these motherboards and CPUs and these RAM manufacturers. I go onto the motherboard manufacturers pages and read their settings. I go on the Intel's page, read their settings, warranty, especially if you read their warranty, they only allow certain kind of things. And then the motherboard manufacturers are already past the motherboard or the actual Intel's warranty if you do certain things, or even just put the CPU into the motherboard. And then also with the XMP, with XMPs, Intel only implemented up to like 5600 megatransfers per second for RAM on a two DIMM board or a single channel. So motherboard manufacturers and RAM manufacturers have up to 8,000 kits. As soon as you put that in, that's technically voiding the warranty. But there's no way for them to actually check out to see if that was the issue. The motherboard manufacturers will always want the best. They always go on and go, yeah, this motherboard can do this RAM speed. With this CPU, you're guaranteed to hit these speeds and be stable. And that's due to the fact that they're putting more voltage than what is really necessary into all of the cores. When there's multiple cores, especially the E cores can be a lot less voltage than the P cores, but they're setting the E core voltages either the same as the P cores or just a little bit lower. With all these Intel CPUs, there's always going to be two cores, generally two cores that are the prime cores, or even four cores that are the actual good cores, and you can go really high on the frequency with very, very little voltage. But yeah, with these motherboard manufacturers, they're just cranking the voltages into them to make sure that it hit the speeds and stayed stable. But again, with the cooling of customers cooling whatever they are using, I use custom water loops with special monoblocks, 360 mil radiators, and I've never had an issue with my CPUs.
use. Also, too, because they're case SKUs and they're fully unlocked, the board vendors could do whatever the heck they want.
Whatever they
So
want.
high level, board partners or board vendors started pushing voltages higher and higher to get more
If
stability.
you can't hear
because they
this,
were
let me know.
putting no limits in place when it comes to how far voltages and stuff could go. So in order to try and push the clock speeds and get as much stability as possible, they just brute forced it with a ton of voltage. And what was actually killing the CPUs was not all core voltages or all core workloads. It was actually single core and two core workloads, because in those conditions, those cores could go to the highest clocks that were set, which was 6 gigahertz and above sometimes,
And up to
which meant
1.6
big
volts,
spikes of
no
voltage to those
problem.
particular cores. So it was actually those types of situations that were killing the CPUs when it came to voltages, not
And
all
killing
core
one
workloads.
core.
Because under
You'll
all
just be
core
killing
workloads
one
in
or
V2,
two
it was actually
cores.
lower
And which
voltage and lower
could
frequencies across the board.
So what he's saying here, yeah, it's not just the full core load. It was the full core load for multiple reasons. Because again, heat. As soon as you go to a full core load, it went to a different parameter and it would kick into a different voltage curve on the actual CPU. And the motherboard manufacturers, to keep the stability on an all core load, they would set the voltages and all that as high as it can be, basically on stock. And it did not need to be that high of a voltage. It did not need to go up to 1.6 volts for all the cores. It can easily do it at one point. As you can see in my overclocking, I was easily hitting 6 gigahertz at 1.365 volts on my 13900KF. And that's fully stable on all core loads. That was fully stable on the 6 cores. That was fully stable on all the P cores. All the E cores, I was setting them to about 1 volt or 1.1 volt. And the motherboard manufacturers, of course, just went way up and above that to get stable results. I had stable results, and a lot of other people. If you ever heard of Frame Chasers, that's on YouTube. He creates these computers for people and sends them off to actual like COD fanboys, basically. You know, really high-end gamers that want the best of the best. He was sending off some 8,000 megatransfers per second boards, kits fully kitted out, fully tuned out, and none of them with 13900Ks and 14900Ks, none of them have ever seen an issue due to the fact he put the voltages on every core the way it should have been. He put the actual voltages on the XMP or his own tunings for the RAM. He put his own voltages. The XMP for 8,000 kits are up to like 1.55 volts. You do not need that kind of voltage to get stable XMP of 8,000, by the way. You definitely do not, especially Hynix MDI. You can do 1.35 or 1.4 volts to get 8,000 megatransfers per second, no problem.
So now that you understand
Go
that,
away
we're going to talk about DLVR, which stands for Digital Linear Voltage Regulator. So it's the next evolution of FIVR, if you will.
And that right there is, we had dedicated logic register and fmax. So we'll be going through these as well, about a bunch of things that Intel are implementing from here on out to make sure that their CPUs do not get called in for warranty for the motherboard manufacturers going to their max specs at all times for no reason. Those max specs are for people that want to overclock on like liquid nitrogen or dry ice, or have a really good cooling for the water cooling, have lapped their CPUs, have lapped their actual cooling solutions as well to match it, to make sure that they had the best of the best cooling. Again, Intel could have made it so that way the temperature of the CPU only went to 80 or 85 degrees Celsius instead of over 90, like 95 or even 100. Motherboard manufacturers, though, they really did not need to go this far up and above.
DLVR has a few really interesting design elements in there.
So, FIVR, again, we'll be talking about FIVR here. Right here. Intel's FIVR gets a new inductor. DLVR is a digital linear voltage regulator. That's also part of their dedicated logic register as well, and their fmax. So we'll be going again through all this.
And the cool thing about DLVR, at least where Intel is concerned, is the board vendors are no longer allowed, period, to ship a board with a BIOS that has anything other than the Intel performance mode
Okay, again, this is why Intel, when I was talking about Intel months and months ago about them needing to step it up and do something about these motherboard manufacturers. I don't know if they were listening to my channel or saw my channel or something, but they automatically started doing it, and they're making sure that the motherboard manufacturers can only do so much with stock settings. And then they will probably make it so that way, let's say the customer starts overclocking their CPU in that, and they try to call it in for warranty if they do break it, they will be able to find that out on a some sort of readout because they do have AI implemented on a bunch of things on their new stuff. So maybe the AI will hold on to a different section of the CPU that has a cached file for just in case that someone actually puts in way above specs that is not put into this performance mode. And if you do that and you break your CPU and send it in, and they say, well, no, you did this. Well, guess what? It's registered onto the CPU, and you would have to technically break the CPU die to make sure you get rid of it because it's built into a cached file onto the actual CPU die.
Defaults enabled. Now that's the way that the BIOS were supposed to be after the fixes for 13th and 14th gen. But I think as we covered and other people have covered, it took several BIOS iterations before the board vendors really got on board with truly
Yeah.
following the Intel power profiles.
Because those motherboard manufacturers want to be the best of the best. They wanted to have full stability while getting people to go, oh, this motherboard here is reaching this voltage. Again, if you had like a Asus Apex motherboard, all these 1.6 volts in the BIOS would be happening to you. If you did not, again, you'd have to set certain parameters, all manually set parameters. Anything that was stock would be hitting these voltages on either all core or single core loads or dual core loads on the P cores. And if you weren't watching the temperature, you could actually break one or two cores or just fry the whole CPU or degrade it just to keep degrading it as you're using it. Or even just if you're in the BIOS for too long, you would actually degrade your CPU in the BIOS because it was holding that 1.6 volts.
Out of the box. So for instance, like our Asus board for a while there, sure they put the Intel power profiles in there, but it was really kind of a convoluted two-step process to get them activated, where they would still ship with their 4096 watts and whatever ridiculous unlimited settings enabled. Now, if everyone out there who has 13th to 14th gen and Z790, Z690 boards have updated their BIOS, they should now be Intel performance profile out of the box. Now that is what's going to follow into Arrow Lake.
Again, he's saying performance mode out of the box, as in that's the max parameter stock settings will be able to hit. As soon as you start wanting to tune it yourself, you can of course achieve different kind of clocks, different kind of voltages other than stock settings. But if you had a degraded CPU, you would have to raise the voltage a little bit more to keep it stable. It all depends on what you know about and whether or not you just want stock settings. But it actually took multiple, like you said, multiple BIOS updates with the microcode to be able for all these motherboard manufacturers to keep it at the actual standard performance mode, not to go to the above the performance mode standard, as in the 500 amp at 1.6 volts. That was a different parameter set in place for hardcore overclockers like myself and a whole bunch of other people that actually like to do that, and enthusiasts. Again, if you're buying these high-end Intel CPUs or high-end Ryzen CPUs, you have to be an enthusiast, you have to have the cooling for it, and you have to have the knowledge and actually do the work yourself and or read up on certain forums on people that have actually knowledge about what they're doing. If you're going off of somebody that just wants to make some content and going, this is all Intel's fault. You have to do this, you have to do that. You don't. That's the motherboard manufacturer making it so you have to do that. Intel implements certain parameters on different CPUs, and with the high-end CPUs, they made a certain parameter that you could go to, and then motherboard manufacturers just automatically wanted to go straight to the max. That's not Intel's fault. That's the motherboard manufacturers. And that caused a lot of issues. And a lot of people just blamed Intel for it. I came out and said months ago, this is not, I read from forums, I read from Intel's page, I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like they're taking the full blame. They took like the full blame. I'm like, the motherboard manufacturers are actually implementing this on stock settings and blaming Intel because they had too much freedom. Now Intel is actually putting in the work. They actually are doing the due diligence and going, motherboard manufacturers, you can only do this. As soon as somebody wants to overclock and not go stock settings, then that'll be just fine. It won't be the motherboard manufacturers getting the blame either.
I had a one-on-one meeting with Intel. I got to ask these questions because I was like, architecturally stuff aside, that's all cool. I'm really more interested in what the actual steps that were taken are to make sure that this doesn't happen again. So that's why the DLVR discussion really kind of took place. They are going to be overseeing every aspect.
Stringency. Yeah. Intel will be overseeing their motherboard partners. So remember when I was, again, this was months ago. I was going Intel, the motherboard manufacturers, the RAM manufacturers, even GPU manufacturers, to be honest, because GPUs go into motherboards too and whatnot, right? They need to talk more with each other and be like, yeah, the warranty on my page here is this. You should only technically be going to that standard. With the, like I said, the K CPUs and all that, yeah, we have more freedom with it. But the motherboard manufacturers did not need to do what they did, like to get the maximum stability. Go, oh, my motherboard does this, or this motherboard of my motherboard brand does this. It's only gonna cost you over $1,000 for the motherboard, but you'll get what you want. It doesn't matter if it destroys your CPU, you'll get what you want.
Of the board
And now they're
vendors.
making it
There's
so
going to
that
be a
way.
much more stringent, much more official kind of an audit process taking place to make sure that the board vendors are
Yep.
not creating problems for
Again, I came out
consumers
with this
by
months
having the
ago.
CPUs
Months
operate
ago.
outside of their expected power profiles. Now, the power profiles are the same three names, which we kind of talked about is kind of, we don't like it because of the fact that it creates confusion. But there's the Intel baseline profile, there's the Intel performance profile, and then there's the Intel extreme profile.
And motherboard manufacturers had their own kind of profiles as well that they implemented and that you could use as well. Like there's three main from Intel, and those are basically it.
Now, the extreme profile is basically where the
Max.
average, the watts, the volts, and all of that is set to the max rated limit for the CPU. It should basically never exceed those limits no matter what, unless you're doing like LN2 world record overclocking and such. And we'll talk about that in a second here.
Thank
But
you,
just
Jay.
like FIVR, you can actually drill down.
He should have came out with this when I came out with this months ago too, because he has people that actually know what they're talking about as well. The cameraman behind, like the guy behind this camera, filming all this for him, Phil. He's a very smart guy as well, and he does his knowledge and due diligence as well. So, I mean, there's so many things that could have been said months ago instead of all these creators are going, this is Intel's fault. This is only Intel because they didn't do the work at the time. At least I came out and was like, this is not just Intel's fault. Intel might have set these parameters, but the motherboard manufacturers are allowing or actually putting in the maximum parameters, which is not good. Especially if you are someone that doesn't know what you're doing, you're just putting it in using a nice air cooler. It doesn't matter if you're using a really good air cooler, it does not match a custom water loop with a really good CPU water block. And the temperatures will be too high at too much voltage and degrade your CPU. Again, that's on the motherboard manufacturers going, I want the best. Or if you want the best, this is the best. We'll make sure you get it. It'll degrade your CPU. They never said that. And a lot of people didn't know about all these BIOS updates that either the motherboard manufacturers were putting out, and then later on when the actual issue arose, it was a long time ago when the issue arose, but a lot of people took notice after certain content creators said, oh, it's all Intel, this is all Intel, Intel did this, Intel did that. It wasn't Intel's fault. They put those parameters in, again, for extreme overclocking enthusiasts, not for motherboard manufacturers, just to put those parameters in place so that way they can get the highest XMP, so that way they can get the most stable, the most frequency out of their CPUs. They did not need to do that. They could have just took the parameter that's just set below that and got the same thing. except for you would not get the same XMP. The XMP would be a bit lower on it.
Down into through the
XMP, the
voltage
RAM,
power
your
gates,
RAM.
you can actually drill down into individual voltage control per P core. So depending on how many P cores are on the chip that you get, there's 3-core Ultra CPUs that are launching, right? The 285, 265, 245 K, and then they are going to have different P core, E core counts. So each P core can have its own.
Wake up, Addison. Big day.
Each P core can have its own. This you could do yourself anyways. If you downloaded Extreme XGU 2.0, you can actually do this yourself. You can put each voltage, or if you know about your BIOS and that too, you can put in the voltage for every single core on the P cores and the E cores. That is up to you and the knowledge that you know as a consumer. Again, if you are someone that bought these CPUs way back, these high-end enthusiast grade CPUs, and didn't know what you're doing and had it all on stock, you would have either from certain motherboard manufacturers degrading CPU over time because you probably didn't have the $1,000 cooling for that CPU. You were not on dry ice. You were not on liquid nitrogen where these parameters should have been used at, not at stock settings.
Voltage control and its own frequency control, which is kind of nice, like the VF curve on a per P core basis.
I really don't care about that. That's just too much in my opinion. If you know what you're doing, you don't need to set those kind of curves, especially on GPUs too. People go, "Oh, you gotta set the curve," and that I can get better results by my own tuning than the VF curve. So don't talk to me about your VF curves and that.
It's just like how FIVR was. And just like FIVR, it's going to have E-core clusters that you can go in and do individual voltage control and frequency control as well. And those clusters are 4 E-cores at a time. So each 4 E-cores is a cluster. You can control voltage and stuff to them individually.
I'm just gonna set
Intel's
myself
also going to be giving
over
much
here.
more defined limits for what those V-core values are going to be. So no more is there going to be kind of guesswork based on those nuanced tables that are all kind of difficult to follow. They're trying to make this a lot more easy to understand for the board vendors to know exactly where those hard limits are. Now, one of the things I asked is what kind of testing are they doing right now? Because the problem is it didn't pop up for a couple of years. And that's the thing, degradation, like CPUs are designed to run like.
Again, I came out with this a long time ago, and then when it really popped out, I had to, I had to make my own videos about it to be like, I don't know what these content creators or these people that think they know what they're talking about are blaming Intel for it. Because this popped up years ago. If you actually go through the BIOS updates on your motherboard like you should be doing, you should update your BIOS to the newest BIOS. If you don't know what you're doing, then don't touch it. Get someone else to do it. But you should always be updating your BIOS so that way you're getting up to date everything. If you have not updated your BIOS since you got your 13900K or something like that, you're still degrading your CPU, by the way. You have to actually put this in yourself. You actually have to update the BIOS and the microcode yourself. So if you don't know anything about that, bring your PC into somewhere, some sort of computer shop that actually does know what they're doing. They can do that for you. If you had a certain kind of motherboard like I do, doesn't matter if I mess up the BIOS update, I can just redo it basically. There's a safety precaution on my motherboard, but I have a really expensive motherboard. I do extreme overclocking. I do all my own tunings, and this is something that I think a lot of people need to learn before they buy these enthusiast grade CPUs, is that you need to make sure that you know what you're doing. You need to make sure that your BIOS is up to date. You need to make sure that you know all the voltage maxes for the actual CPU itself. And not even that, the actual like your RAM voltages and that too, because the RAM voltages actually go to a single rail onto the actual CPU, and if you put too much voltage, you can actually degrade the actual part that talks like the microcontroller on the actual CPU that talks to the actual RAM. So you got to know what you're doing. Just go onto Intel's page, go onto your motherboard manufacturer's page, read up on what you have. So if you have like a 13900K, go read up on that. If you have like I have a Z690 Ors Master, go on Gigabyte's website. Don't go onto forums, not go onto the Gigabyte website and check out what they're actually implementing and stuff like that. You need to know what you're talking about. You need to know what you're doing if you're actually going to be buying these types of things. Now Intel's, like I said, doing a step up and all that. So they're making it so that way these motherboard manufacturers cannot go to their next step, their next level of overclocking on their stock systems. You'd have to manually, as a consumer, set those settings so that way you can actually do the extreme overclocking like I like to do, and like thousands of other people like to do, enthusiasts like to do, is extreme overclocking with extreme cooling, and you need to know what you're doing. If you want to follow my channel and learn more about that, I will be going into a competition, Hardware Bot Country Cup 2024. It'll be starting here in November 1st, so I will definitely be doing that. And if you want to learn a bit more about overclocking and getting into it, you can definitely follow my channel and my live streams. I will be coming up with some videos here soon about some stuff too. So if you like to set notifications on so that way you can watch all my new videos and my live streams, you can do that. It's all up to you.
Like 10 to 20 years, ridiculous. And there's always going to be a slight amount of degradation that happens in that process, but that amount of degradation is built into the lifespan of the CPU, and usually under regular use case scenarios for like gamers and stuff that aren't.
Again, people that have like these older CPUs, like their i7 4770K, the fourth gen, so like the i5 4670K, i7 4770K, i7 4790Ks, Intel started implementing in the fourth gen a bunch of things, and they should have kept up on making sure the motherboard manufacturers can only do so much, but because of the K variants, they allowed them to do whatever they wanted basically with the CPU, the motherboard manufacturers, not even the consumers, the motherboard manufacturers. And all this started at Intel 4th gen CPUs, by the way. And now they are implementing even more aspects into the parameters that was made into the CPUs back from Intel's 4th gen. And now that's going to be put in, and probably they're never going to take out this next implementation that they're doing. It's probably never going to be taken out. So again, motherboard manufacturers, you blew it, like absolutely blew it, and you should not have done this to Intel, because now you're going to be all the same. Intel is only going to allow so much, and every motherboard manufacturer is going to go to what they can maximum do, and guess what? That's all you can do, motherboard manufacturers. All of you will be exactly the same now. None of you are going to be better than anyone else. So now your motherboards are going to be way cheaper, and everyone's going to actually, all those consumers are going to be way happier. All these high-end motherboards, you can buy a low-end motherboard, well, a medium tier. It's got to be at least an 8-layer PCB. I like my 10 layers, but an 8-layer PCB, which is like a medium tier motherboard, is going to match basically the 10-layer $1,000 motherboards. These $300 motherboards are going to match the $1,000 motherboards now for actual performance. They're all going to be the same. No motherboard manufacturer with Intel now is going to be better than the other, because each motherboard manufacturer is literally going to max out what Intel's specs are for the maximum performance mode, like I said, their maximum state. And if you want to be an overclocker like I am, you can actually achieve the higher up state. Motherboard manufacturers will not be able to do that, though, by their stock settings.
Overclocking anything would never ever see their CPU degrade to the point to where it's no longer stable in its lifespan that you would have it be relevant and usable. That's why you see people with 10, 15-year-old systems that are still running. Every piece of silicon is degrading as you're using it. It's just at a very slow rate. And the problem with the issues that we talked about was it definitely accelerated the rate at which that degradation was happening. So I asked him, I said, how are you guys testing this?
I have CPUs that are 13, 15-year-old CPUs that still work like they're out of the box, by the way. Still use the same amount of voltages that they have, and I've done extreme overclocking on them. So these CPUs that are literally degrading within a year, something happened there, and that wasn't just Intel.
To even try and head off any of these problems at the start, because if it's a degradation problem, it might take that year or 2 or 3 to find out what's happening. But one of the things that
it did not take that long, by the way. It did not take that long. If you go back through all the BIOS updates, it was literally close to 2 years ago now. They found out this problem, and they started doing BIOS updates to try to solve the issue. But Intel didn't actually know what was going on. Intel didn't know, but the motherboard manufacturers kept doing little BIOS updates to with Intel talking about, oh, it must be this, oh, it must be that. Then it's like, oh no, Intel and the motherboard manufacturers did not talk enough, and they were allowing them to reach this extra state that Intel actually had implemented into their stock settings. And that was the issue that was causing all these CPUs to degrade. And degrading CPUs is very hard to do, by the way. So anyone that bought these enthusiast grade CPUs on stock settings, literally at 1.6 volts, I mean, if you didn't have the cooling for it, of course your CPU is going to degrade. I mean, we're at a lower nanometer CPU now, so the tolerances of how much voltage can be put into it with the maximum amount of temperature it's got to be lower. We got to lower the temperature of the CPUs to be allowing these kind of voltages to keep things stable. Um, Ryzen with their like they came out with their CPUs and literally 95 degrees was its minimum. But like that was its standard. If it went to 95 degrees Celsius, well, guess what? It stayed at 95 degrees Celsius. It would downclock the CPU a bit to keep it at 95 degrees Celsius and not above. But they made their standard at 95 degrees Celsius. That's a little high in my opinion.
They're doing right now is they're actually doing some testing in some pretty harsh environments. They're actually using iCafes in mainland China, where they are running these desktops, not like servers, but
Desktops.
in extremely hot, cluttered.
And again, this is why I started asking people from around the world, from India, from Australia, and all that, with different kind of climates, their CPUs, if they had the actual 13900Ks or 14900Ks or KFs, KSs, all those enthusiast grade CPUs, if what kind of temperatures they were looking at, what cooling they had. Guess what? Most of them had air cooling, and they're saying, yeah, our performance is not as good. The stability is really bad on it, and it's like, well, your climate's so much different than it is here in Canada. Here in Canada, we didn't reach the temperatures that other parts of the world reached, and then we got our winter. Our winters go down to negative 40 degrees Celsius, which is really cold. So it's completely different. So I was asking all my subscribers and people that actually watch my videos, live streams, and that what they actually use for their PCs. If it was in a small case, big case, if they had AC in their house, most of the people did not have AC either. So it's like, what kind of temperatures were they reaching? And they're saying very, very hot. Like they were getting up to the 90 degrees Celsius at all times, basically on stock settings. That shouldn't be the case. On stock settings with these CPUs, if you had an okay cooler, should be around 75 degrees Celsius on stock. But since the motherboard manufacturers are pumping in 1.6 volts or 1.585 volts basically, and allowing the CPU to go to the actual extra parameter that was set in place, of course the temperatures could be way too hot, and then it's going to degrade your CPU.
Clustered, humid environments. So not only are they testing it with hot environment, they're testing it in high humidity environments as well. And apparently these systems are running 24/7 in these labs.
Which is good. Like it's
I'm
great
not sure
they're
how the
doing
humidity
this.
necessarily plays in.
Humidity, so humidity, yeah, he doesn't know, but humidity is part of thermodynamics for cooling, basically. So if you know anything about AC units, like, your AC unit, it could be outside, or your window shakers. You ever heard of those window shakers? I guess we call them window shakers, but your AC units that go into a window, well, they have a collection tray, so that way when the condensing fan comes on and all the water gets collected into this tray, the water is supposed to go into that tray, by the way, so that way when the condensing fan comes on, it can spray some water or like mist some water basically onto the actual condenser itself. So that way it can get better efficiency and better performance. That is what humidity can do to the air. So we got Dave here. I don't know. I don't even know why people are bashing it. It's new. Basically because the 5800 X3D performs like that, and you could buy the 5800 X3D way cheaper. The motherboard's way cheaper, and they keep pumping out these new 3Ds, but the 5800 X3D is either the same or just below the performance of these new CPUs that cost 3 times as much. So that's probably why they're bashing it. So what I'm talking about for humidity in that, I have Dave. If everyone watches my streams and my videos, here's Dave. Dave here is at 17 degrees, 53% humidity. He's very happy today. Again, Dave is never happy, by the way. Dave is never happy. He's always sad. Sad Dave. But the humidity, I would always have Dave set up somewhere so that way when I'm doing my overclocking, I can see what the humidity's at and I can write this down. I can see what the temperature is at and I can write this down for the actual benchmarking that I'm doing. So that way I can have a reference on what the humidity was because the humidity has water in it. Humidity, right? Humidity, there's water. Um, Not good for us for breathing and stuff like that, right? Because we're not fishes. But the higher the humidity, the better the cooling. But if you go below zero with high humidity, you can get freezing and all the humidity that's on your actual metal on your PC and all that can freeze up and make ice. And if that thaws out, that can actually harm your PC components because PC components don't like water, especially when they're running. I wash all my stuff, by the way, with water. I clean all my PC components with water. Just you gotta make sure you dry it out fairly quick, and you can't have minerals in the water. So you should be using purified bottled water to wash your components. That's the way I do it, and that's the way a lot of people do it. Ooh, I actually didn't know that. I will actually read up some more about the 5800 X3D versus the 7900 X3D then, all right? And maybe I'll make a video about that. I don't have the money to just go out and buy these kind of CPUs, so I can't show the test or do my own kind of testing on these Ryzen CPUs, these new ones, because I have to get motherboards, I have to get RAM kits that are made for it, and I have to get the CPU. So it gets very pricey that way. But I'll definitely take a look and see on Ryzen or AMD's actual page, and I'll go on to motherboard pages and see what they're doing with it to see how it's actually different from the 5800 X3D versus the 7800 X3D. I will definitely do that. Yeah, yeah, small channel. I do have lots of subscribers that are actually technically sending me stuff, old hardware, new hardware, and I'm just waiting for it. And I will be doing a shout out to them. Very nice people. Been talking to them for a bit now, and very nice people. Uh, but yeah, small channel, but a lot of people are starting to like my content and like how I know my stuff and very truthful. And I don't care about these brands and all these other people saying, like these content creators saying things about certain stuff that they heard of or they don't really know much about themselves because they're content creators. They go off of what somebody else has said, and that person might not know what they're doing and might not have went on to, like I said, Intel's actual page themselves, checked up all their Intel's pages, the motherboard manufacturers' pages, the RAM manufacturers' pages, NVMe's GPUs. Like I do all of that. I'll go onto the actual page and search up the actual GPU from the manufacturer, see what's going on, not just go off of somebody else's word. Because if you go off of somebody else's word, that's something that they've done and it might have worked for them in their climate. Intel sets these parameters so that way it works universally around the world. Yeah, what happened?
into the potential degradation, but that's the environment in which they're testing them in. And I guess that's important. You have to be able to support all regions.
Oh no, I'm not asking for people to be just sending me stuff. Again, small YouTuber channel. I do have to get like a PO box set up so that way all that stuff can go there and get verified that it's all good to go, basically. Because you never know with some people. You gotta watch what you're doing around the internet, basically, right? Yeah, you gotta be careful. You just gotta be careful.
The world and high humid areas.
Thank you, though.
Like
Thank you.
the Pacific, South Pacific, East Asia, they're very, very humid climates. So obviously, or anyone that lives in just the Carolinas in August, it gets pretty damn humid. So they're testing them in those environments. But going back to the power profiles, one of the things that Intel.
So, like I said, with the humidity and that, with humidity itself, technically it's going to help the cooling in humidity climates. It's when you get to the very dry, hot temperatures that actually can cause issues because most of your cooling's on metal. It's always metal cooling. So If you're on a water cooling loop, you have either aluminum or copper radiator that's dissipating the heat. More humidity will technically help the cooling. Doesn't matter the temperature, it would technically help the cooling just due to thermodynamics, basically. Okay, let's say you go to Australia, that's very, very dry, very, very hot. If you go out to there, it's going to perform completely different. So they should be doing these tests in very dry, hot climates. Linus Tech Tips, by the way, if you ever watch Linus Tech Tips, he's a huge Canadian YouTuber. He actually has a climate controlled unit, and it's a very expensive climate controlled unit that can go from way below zero to very, very hot, and they can do their testing in that. Linus should be doing testing of all these CPUs, like the 13th and 14th 900Ks, and different motherboard manufacturers with their straight out the box, so no BIOS updates and that, and they should be testing these into those kind of climates, as in very, very dry and very, very hot temperatures, like Australia, like I said. And I do have subscribers and viewers from Australia, and they say it's not very nice with the high-end CPUs or even high-end GPUs. But I've had people that say with the 4090s out in India, where it's very, very humid and very hot as well, that it actually performs not half bad.
Intel said will absolutely positively never be allowed out of the box for the board vendors is the extreme profile. Performance profile is the profile that needs to be set. So there even gives a little bit of headroom still between the performance profile and the extreme, which I mentioned are the
To set the profile as default. So again, motherboard manufacturers, they can go through 3 different profiles to set as the standard, and they're setting the extreme profile as their standard, basically.
hard limits of the CPU. But let's talk about overclocking, because they're controlling the voltage again in the micro.
If you're new to the channel or the streams that I'm doing, I do have Discord set back up. If you'd like to join the Discord channel, you can just click on the Discord channel link, and you'll be brought to actually the Discord, where we will be talking about way more in depth on stuff, and there will be a lot of people that know what they're talking about. Or if you just want to have like some one-on-one time, talk to me, ask me PC questions, there are channels just dedicated to that. I don't have as much time as I would like to be able to go to the Discord, so I do have moderators now. Thank you again, Frosty, for being one of my moderators and helping me set up the channel. It's a lot more professional than what I had set up before, but I would like people to go to my actual Discord, show me their PC hardware, show me what they used, what they have used. Talk to me about parameters that they do, voltages on their CPUs or GPUs, if they know how to voltage mod them as well. I do voltage modding, I do power limit modding, I do have videos on that for 1070 if you would like to check that out as well. And I know a lot about RAM timings.
Microcode. Specifically on the microcode on the CPU, just like we talked about with 13th and 14th.
No, it's the motherboard manufacturers, and this is why I'm making this video. Jay's 2 cents here. He's stepping it up as well, and he's saying it's the motherboard manufacturers having too much freedom. Intel and the motherboard manufacturers did not talk enough. I've talked about this months and months ago. The Intel and the other like vendors, like motherboard manufacturers, RAM manufacturers, they were not communicating enough about the actual CPUs. These are high-end enthusiast grade CPUs, and they're allowing Intel's not allowing, but the motherboard manufacturers had too much freedom, as in Intel did not set a parameter on which the motherboard manufacturers can go to on stock settings, and they were putting into a different parameter that Intel had set in place. Again, these issues are now being more talked about. I was talking about this years ago, by the way, before everybody else. I was telling people what it is, and I had people come on my channel, you don't know what you're talking about. Now we got creators, now we got the actual facts, and I am 100% correct on everything I said years ago, a year ago. on all this stuff before everybody else. I don't mind saying this. I don't mind saying it's not Intel. It's not just Intel's fault. Yes, it's part Intel's fault, but it's also the motherboard manufacturers and RAM manufacturers' fault as well for either instability or degrading the CPUs, because the motherboard manufacturers had too much freedom. Again, Jay's 2 cents is even saying this, and now they're implementing these parameters into Intel CPUs from here on out. So motherboard manufacturers can only set to a certain parameter. So it doesn't matter what motherboard you get, motherboard brand you get, they're all going to be the same from here on out for Intel specs. Ryzen might have something different, but what I've heard and read up on so far is that Ryzen's doing the same thing, making sure the motherboard manufacturers don't have as much freedom as they used to, because they don't want to eat the warranty. They don't want the headache of having their customers go, "Oh, you broke my CPU," when they didn't know what was going on. They didn't actually know what the motherboard manufacturers were implementing. And then it took literally almost 2 years for Intel to find out it's the motherboard manufacturers. Asus is one of the worst ones out there for implementing over specs on stock settings, just so they can say, I have the best. If you know what you're talking about, you would know that it was the motherboard manufacturers, because you would be putting in your own voltages, you'd be putting in all your own core frequencies on every single core. You would be doing all of this yourself, and you'd be going, why is the motherboard manufacturer putting in this amount of voltage on stock? It doesn't need that voltage, but they had it because they wanted everything to be stable and the fastest. But stable and the fastest means you have to pump in the voltages and all that, so that way everybody around the world can be stable and have a really high clocking frequency CPU straight out the box. So again, it's so many
But
things.
apparently, there is a even if the
Yeah, Gigabyte for some things, yeah. yeah. Gigabyte did. Yeah, a Gigabyte did. I have, like I said, a Gigabyte board, but it did not go even close to what Asus was doing. Asus was, like I said, in the BIOS for Asus boards was at 1.6 volts on stock settings. 1.6 volts on the BIOS screen. And the CPU is going, let's go, let's go, let's go. And then as soon as you went in, the voltages would go down, but on certain kind of loads, single and dual core and all core loads, the voltage would go back up to the 1.6 volts due to them setting to the other parameter Intel had in place for extreme overclockers, not for motherboard manufacturers to put it on stock settings. Why is it closing and not playing?
even if you went into the motherboard settings and tried to just like let me add a whole
My main rig. Yeah, I'm sorry for pausing the video, everybody. I'm trying to get as much information out there as possible. I've always been that way. So if you go back to my old videos about Intel's microcode updates, and before that on Intel's issues and the warranty and that, you'll find out that everything I'm saying now, I've said way back, way before everybody else. I have a Z690 ORS Master. I have 48 gigabytes of Corsair Dominator titanium RAM, Hynix M die. Right now I have a 12600K, but I've had a 12900K and a 13900KF. No issues with those CPUs. Right now I have a 12600K. Everything's on water cooling. Now we'll show that. Just show people a little bit of my stuff. I'm gonna keep it bobblehead so that way I don't have to just move it, but James Bond style. So 360mm radiator, Z690 mono block, for a custom mono block for the actual CPU and motherboard. A modded, so I mod all my stuff. Even the RAM is modded. A copper modded the backside because they're single sided. A copper modded them. Took off the LEDs because it just adds extra heat. And then 3070 Ti that's been modded by Zotac. This 3070 Ti has multiple world records on, well, not world records, but records technically on hardware bot. And I have a 980 Pro, Samsung 980 Pro, 2 terabyte for the storage, and I build my own custom DASs and that. Again, D5 pump, Thermaltake D5 pump. And yes, that's not LG in that. That is actual car radiator antifreeze that I use in it because I'm in Canada and I like to be able to make sure nothing freezes up, especially out here in the garage. But that's my main rig. I have multiple custom water loops and all that I use for overclocking. EK, but EK's had some issues, right? So I I don't want to say, oh, I use this because it's the best. I use this and that. I just use what I thought was really good at the time, and then I modify everything so it can either be cooler. So that CPU water block that I was telling you about, it's been lapped. My CPU has been lapped. My RAM has been copper modded to help the cooling on that, like the actual wicking away cooling. All the memory chips that are on my 3070 Ti are copper modded. I showed this in my last night's stream. If you ever use MSI Afterburner, you know the sliders for the memory and all that. I can go to 11,500 megahertz on my RAM, on the actual GPU, GDDR6X Micron memory. I can do 11,500 megahertz, no problem on all my tests with 100% stability. If you're someone that does not have these kind of mods on your GPUs with GDDR6X Micron memory, you cannot do this. You'd probably be able to do maybe 10,000, but not 11,500, over 11,500 megahertz on it. Yes, serious. I have vintage graphics cards that I overclock. I have 9 motherboards now. I had to sell a couple of motherboards, but I have 9 motherboards. I have like 20 different PC cases, Antec PC case. If you go DAS, I build my own DASs. Direct attached storage, I build my own NASs. Network attached storages. So it's like I know what I'm talking about on this kind of stuff. It's just small channel, right? So I've only been doing this less than a year, and actually I feel like I'm doing pretty good. And my viewers that have been with me since the beginning say keep it up. Like everything looks a lot better than what it was, and hopefully you continue doing it. And I'm gonna try to. Hey, what up there, Frosty? So Frosty here is one of my moderators, and he will let me know if there's any issues or if someone has questions that he can't answer. He will message me directly and let me know. He's also set up the Discord for me. Again, thank you very much there, Frosty. What is the best motherboard? The Z690 Ors Master is actually the best motherboard so far I've owned. I don't know if I got lucky with the actual motherboard, but I've gotten the RAM speeds up above what most people can get on this motherboard. I've gotten 8,200 mega transfers per second on this motherboard, and it's rock stable. Like the actual power phases on this motherboard are way overpowered. It is a 10-layer PCB. It is an EATX, so you need to have a big PC case. But as you can see, my PC's never put together. I take it apart all the time. So, and I have to do that for the next coming competition. But what I'm going to do is I'll be right back. You guys can keep messaging in chat, and I'll come back to you in a second here. But I'll let Jay's 2 cents talk a bit more because I didn't watch the whole video on this, but as soon as I saw this video and him talking about certain things, I'm like, I've already been talking about this months and months ago, and I'm glad Jay's 2 cents here actually started talking about it because other content creators are going to be saying the same thing. And by the way, motherboard manufacturers, so the motherboards that were really, really pricey back in the day, like this motherboard was really, really expensive. All the motherboards that were really expensive are going to be a lot cheaper from here on out.
Volt. Do it. It won't do it because the P code will basically say no. We're not going to do that. And this is part of what the DLVR is doing, or the digital linear voltage regulator is doing, is the CPU is protecting itself from overzealous board vendors, which is a huge part of the issue that we've had leading up to this point. So I asked the question, I said, what does that mean about overclocking? Does that mean overclocking is dead? As somebody that likes to do mainstream overclocking and tune and tweak and stuff, I said, what does that mean? Well, there's a couple of ways that we can talk about this. First and foremost, let's talk about LN2 overclocking, like world records and all that stuff. Very niche crowd. It's like we all like to watch it. It's like watching Formula One on TV, but none of us are ever going to be Formula One drivers, so we still watch it because it's cool. So the same thing when it comes to that type of overclocking. there's something called DLVR bypass that is going to be built, that's available in the BIOS. Now, it may be called something different per vendor. Not all vendors are calling it the same, but DLVR bypass is like remove all safeguards. Let the motherboard tell the CPU what to do. But there's caveat. What keeps the board vendors from just or enabling that on default, like enabling on, which is disabling, right? So what keeps a board vendor from doing that? Well, I asked that question, and basically it's gonna, if DLVR bypass is enabled, a couple of things are going to happen. And what's about to happen, as I'm mentioning here, is coming in unfortunately, a future microcode update. I really think this should be now. I really think this is something that should happen now before launch. It's going to put the CPU in what's called a low frequency mode, or LFM, which basically says the CPU will not exceed 400 megahertz unless the temperature of the package is below 10C. So this is for like the LN2 overclockers and such. So it's an extra safeguard that says you disabled DLVR, great. Unless you got the cooling to support these types of limits you're now asking for, you're not going to get the frequency unless it's under 10C. So you're going to need exotic sub-ambient cooling to be able to benefit from DLVR bypass. Now that's not to punish the end user. That's to punish the board vendors that might try and enable that by default. So that's specifically Intel battling their partners, if you will. You still do get some nominal overclocking ability I mean, with the extreme profile, you can push the CPU to its voltage limits, and depending on the ASIC quality, you might get extra clock speed. You might get you might be able to even undervolt it in some way. You can't exceed the voltage of the maxes, but you can undervolt. So if you get a really good silicon lottery winner, you could push the frequencies a little bit and actually undervolt it. What I was kind of told, I couldn't get my hands on, is apparently P-core overclocking is like okay on these, but apparently P-core has a ton of headroom, something like a gigahertz.
I get a gigahertz, by the way, on my E-cores. So the E-cores on this 12600K about 3.6 gigahertz, I think 3.6 is its max on the E-cores. I can get up to 4.4, 4.5 gigahertz on the actual E-cores when I overclock this CPU, no problem. So that's why I would like to get into dry ice and liquid nitrogen. It just costs a lot of money for the doers, the CPU blocks, memory blocks, GPU blocks. They cost a lot of money, so I haven't gotten into it. Liquid nitrogen and dry ice itself isn't that expensive. It's the actual stuff you need to actually do the tests. But you can get these kind of E-core frequencies up to a gigahertz almost on the E-cores just by overclocking them and setting your own voltages, not letting the voltage go too high, so that way it doesn't cause instability. You just gotta manually tune your actual CPU.
Of additional clock speed available to the E-core clusters, which apparently is giving huge uplifts in performance. How that's going to relate to games will depend on which games are actually leveraging E-cores in some way versus P-cores.
So that would be like your Minecraft, your simulators, and that utilize all these cores, like a lot of cores. Basically, more cores you have, the better these games will run, especially if you're running at these high mods and all that on these games. E-cores can be very beneficial. If you're a first-person shooter type of person, P-cores is what you want, and you don't even need hyperthreading. You can disable the hyperthreading on them, get way more performance out of it, because the higher the clock speeds, the better the gains. So it scales, all the games scale very well with actual core frequency for first-person shooters.
Phil's mindset of this is, give me a CPU with no E-cores. Just give me a P-core heavy CPU and call it a day for like gamers that don't care about the efficiency cores, or maybe that's not helping them. Phil's like, screw Cinebench, I want P-cores, I want all the P-cores. But anyway, yeah, so 400 megahertz is the frequency limit when the LPR is bypassed. Again, coming in a future microcode, which I highly recommend should be coming now. But I think there must be doing additional testing on that to make sure that it's functioning as intended, rather than causing problems for people with it not functioning correctly. Now OEMs and ODMs like Alienware,
thank you for subscribing.
Lenovo, right? Acer, all these guys. So they've got in-house built systems that typically have their own custom BIOS loaded on these motherboards that may or may not be
consumers
what
BIOS.
Looks like either proprietary or non-proprietary motherboards. They are actually being given some leeway on how far they want to push the voltages. Now, they can sort of kind of denote on their end additional millivolts that are available to the CPU. It could be 20, it could be 30, it could be 50, nothing major. But I think the reason why Intel's allowing that versus board vendors is when you buy a box CPU and you put it in a motherboard, you get it, say, Microsoft.
So if you don't know what a box CPU is, it's like an actual box CPU. You go out and buy the CPU. That's a box CPU. So like you throw it into your desktop. That's a box CPU.
Or Best Buy, Amazon, whatever. Intel's on the hook for the warranty on that CPU. And they're not responsible for what the motherboard's doing, or at least right now they're
Again, what I've talked about months ago is they did not communicate with the motherboard manufacturers and say, you cannot go past this parameter on stock settings, and the motherboard manufacturers went way above the stock settings that should have been implemented from the beginning.
they're on the hook for it because of all the issues of 13th and 14th gen. But to make sure that the ecosystem is working as expected, then
Ecosystem.
they're the ones that absorb the warranty when it comes to the CPU. So you put together.
And Intel stepped it up on the warranty. They took the blame, even though they themselves did not know about what the motherboard manufacturers were doing. It took a long time for Intel to find out that it was actually the motherboard manufacturers going to their other parameter, going above what they should have been going to for stock settings. And Intel still took the blame. It hurt their stocks a little bit. Intel still has like 78% of the CPU stocks, by the way, so it didn't hurt them too much, but it actually hurt them quite a bit due to the fact that investors for 18A, which is for like service centers, high-end data centers, 18A, investors were like really iffy if they should be doing it. But next year with 20A, for all those investors, hopefully they can see that the Intel's could be limiting board manufacturers and that, and only allowing certain things from the actual board vendors.
Together your own system. Intel owns the warranty for the CPU. Gigabyte owns the warranty for the motherboard if you have them. Asus has the warranty for the graphics card. You have like 8 different
So many different
that are
things,
only
yeah.
warranting their part. The ODM/OEM is responsible for the whole system. So Intel is actually letting them have a little more leeway on their custom BIOS that they want to provide for their systems, because Intel doesn't have to warranty the CPU directly. The warranty goes through the OEM/ODM, and those tray processors are actually
Again, tray processors. I mean, like they, let's say you bought it from a certain vendor that literally wasn't a boxed holding vendor. You didn't have warranty on that CPU. So that's one of the things that a lot of people had issues with, is that they bought their CPUs from a certain location, and that was not, it was a tray CPU, not a boxed CPU, which is the difference between getting the warranty from Intel or getting the warranty from the actual vendor that sold it to you. And the people that sold it to you would not eat up that warranty and would deny the warranty, saying you have to talk to Intel about this, and then Intel will be like, no, your CPU is not under warranty. It's not a box CPU. It's an actual trade CPU. It's not a legitimate warranted from Intel because it wasn't a box CPU.
differently than a box processor. So whatever back-end sort of arrangement happens with the warranties there, I think Intel is giving them a little bit more leeway on, because like Omen versus
By the way, Skeets, if you're still here, I am somewhat a gamer. I do some gaming nowadays, not a whole lot. Gaming, editing, workstation type stuff, and I do mostly OC. This channel is dedicated to overclocking and just PC hardware to begin with for either enthusiasts or people that want to get into it. There's going to be a hardwarebot.org competition coming up here soon. I was in their last competition. I got 27th place overall for my team. I'm the only person in my team. There's 217 teams that participated, and I got 27th place overall. I could have done better if I had more hardware to actually run the test on, but for my opinion, I did very well. I am currently 5th place in Canada for overclockers, and for my division, as in the apprentice league, I haven't done extreme cooling, so I'm not in extreme. I'm in apprentice. I am in 1st place for my league in Canada.
Lenovo Legion versus Alienware, right? They're all kind of battling too to see who can have the faster system when they're all using standardized parts, like the same CPUs and stuff. How do you make them faster? Well, maybe you have an out-of-the-box overclock that's a little bit faster, maybe 50, 75 megahertz or
Little bit.
something, to kind of give you an edge over the competition. And because Intel's more involved with those ODMs than they are, say, the board vendors and all these one-off custom builds,
Again, not communicating with the consumers, board manufacturers. So as consumers buying these motherboards, Intel was not talking to them as much as they were with their higher end investments. Like I said, the 18A, the service centers, your data centers, all your high end like Xeons and stuff. They were more worried about that kind of stuff. And I would be too, because us consumers, I'm sorry, we don't buy as much as what we think. There may be a lot of us buying Intel, but more Intel products are put into like data centers and place like that.
they're able to play a little bit.
Even
Now, not
NASA.
to say that that necessarily makes those CPUs or those systems, in my opinion, worth it, because they tend to come with a pretty hefty premium in price.
Yeah.
There is a different kind of a relationship happening there than they are with, say, the board vendors. The last drawback I want to talk about, though, with that is the fact that just like I was getting emails with the failed 13th or 14th gen CPUs, MSI and Asus came out with the first microcode fixes before everyone else, and then more came, and then there was
I would hope so, since they went way above, like I said, 1.6 volts in the BIOS. They needed to fix that quickly because someone found out fairly early on and was talking about it. So Asus is like, oh no, we can't let this go out. So they implemented the first BIOS update to make sure that that didn't happen.
was like 3 or 4 different BIOS with microcode fixes that took time. I think the most recent one was even just a few weeks ago. Like, it was
Yeah.
still going on and on and on. I was getting emails from people saying, I've got an Alienware or I've got an HP and I can't use the motherboard manufacturer BIOS because it's a custom BIOS that came from the ODM.
Yes.
So sometimes it takes them longer to get their BIOS updated when something important like this happens. So the drawback there is it could take longer to get those BIOS fixes if something in the future needs to happen. But the last thing I want to talk about here is the fact that Intel has a very uphill battle to earn back the trust. One of the things I said on the meeting was it takes longer to earn back trust than to initially earn trust.
Yes.
So it's easy to initially trust someone until they give you a reason not to. Then it takes a lot longer to rebuild that. And Intel knows that. So I'm really hoping that they've got their ducks in a row, that they've done a lot of testing, a lot of lab, a lot of research to make sure that they've learned from the 13th and 14th gen fiasco, because clearly this next family of CPUs and this whole next architecture and generation and what Arrow Lake brings in terms of like direct NVMe lanes to the CPU and the PCH improvements, the Thunderbolt 4 and 5, like there's so many amazing things happening on the platform as a whole,
Big
aside from
changes.
just the Arrow Lake CPU, but like the whole Z890 platform is kind of insane on what it can do. Kind of
LGA
unfortunately,
1866.
it's happening at the worst time for Intel because the adoption rate's going
Or
to
36.
probably be pretty low at the start. But we'll have to see how the performance really stacks up. Anyway,
Gotcha.
there you go. I want to talk about DLVR. I wasn't seeing a lot of people talk about it, but it's the next iteration.
Not a lot of people talk, but I've talked about this way back. Okay, so we listened to Jay's 2 cents on his opinion about it and the facts that are actually coming out more or less for content creators, bigger content creators. Again, I've talked about this a long time ago. Wasn't just Intel's fault. So what we can talk about is some stuff that are being implemented on stuff. First, we can go over the Ultra 9 processor, the 285K. Again, I came out a while back with a leak about the new processors from Intel. It's going to be a 24 core, 8 performance core, 16 efficiency cores, 24 threads. Right? No hyper threading. Right? So max turbo is 5.7. That thermal velocity boost is 5.7. Turbo boost max technology 3.0 is 5.6. Performance core max turbo frequency is 5.5. Efficiency is going to be 4.6, which is very, very high. Performance core base frequency is going to be 3.7 instead of being like 3.2 or 3.3. Efficiency core base frequency is going to be 3.2, which is really good. Cache. We're going to have 36 megabyte of Intel Smart Cache, which is good. L2 cache, 40 megabytes, which is pretty good. The base power is going to be 125 watts, and the maximum is going to be 250. So it's a lot better than what it was. And that's due to the fact it doesn't have any hyperthreading. Hyperthreading used a lot more wattage just to the fact that it gave you a third more performance. Intel deep learning base, yes. AI software, the new Intel AI is being implemented into it as well. CPU lithography is going to be TSMC N3B, and if you know anything about lithography, that's the actual like architect and how it's actually made. Lithography is how the actual CPU has been made and then designed from the actual processing of making the actual dies. It's gonna be launched. It was launched Q4 24. So that is this year, which is Q4 24. Q4 is quarterly 4, which is the quarterly for the year of 2024. So it's already launched. Embedded options, no. Use conditions, PC, client, tablet, and workstations. Memory specs, it's gonna be up to 192 gigabytes, up to 6,400 mega transfers per second now. So that's good. Besides their 5,600 mega transfers per second they had before on single channel. On dual channel with 4 sticks was 5,200. Yeah, so it's a lot better. And like I said, the maximum is going to be 6,400 mega transfers, not megahertz. Maximum number of memory channels could be 2, so it's going to be either a 2 DIMM board or 4 DIMM board, 2 channels or a single channel. ECC memory supported is yes. So that's good. That's really good. Intel graphics. The graphics base frequency could be 300 megahertz. Graphics max dynamic frequencies could be 2 gigahertz. That's pretty crazy. 2 gigahertz is pretty crazy. GPU peak tops is going to be 8. Graphics output is your DP 2.1, UHBR 2.0. HDMI 2.1, 12 gigahertz. So pretty good. X cores, 4 of them. So there's gonna be 4 best cores. Max resolution HDMI 4K at 60 hertz with the HDMI 2.1, 8K at 60 with HDMI 2.1 FRL. Max resolution, of course, is going to be 8K 60 hertz. Max resolution EDP integrated flat panel is going to be 4K 60 hertz. So if you're a 4K fan, then yeah, it's going to be a really good CPU for you. If you want to try to get into the 8K, you're going to need a hefty GPU, of course, but you're going to be able to do 8K at 60. Maybe not right now, maybe with the new GPUs that are coming out, but you'll be able to do at least 8K 60 hertz. DirectX support is 12. OpenGL support is 4.5. OpenCL support is 3. Intel QuickSync video is going to be a yes. Number of displays supported is going to be 4. Device ID is 0x7D67. That really doesn't matter too much about us, but just reading what's actually on their page. Intel Deep Learning, of course, they're going to have it. NPU specifications, so it's got Intel AI Boost, NPU peak tops, it's going to be 13. Sparsity support is yes. Windows Studio Effects support is yes. If anyone has questions about some of these things, just let me know. Scalability is going to be 1S only. PCI Express revision is going to be 5.0 and 4.0. So basically what we have now is the same. PCI Express configuration up to 1x16, 2x4, 2x8, 2x4, 1x8, and plus 4x4. So it's really good that it has all these express configurations. Maximum number of PCIe PCI Express lanes is gonna be 24, so that's really good as well. So like your NVMe's and all that actually add into that kind of PCI Express lanes as well. So. And your GPU is definitely going to be like a 16, like here, 16 by 1x16 plus 2x4. So like that's going to eat up a bunch of express lanes just from your GPU. Then your NVMe's also go into this as well. So you have to watch how many NVMe's you're running on to certain parts of the motherboard. Motherboard manufacturers should implement this as well and just say you can only do so much on your NVMe's and that. Maximum optimum temperature is 105. See, this is what I think is crazy. Should not be above this. Like, it should not be above 85 or even 90 degrees Celsius, in my opinion. They should not allow this kind of temperature. That would just make things a little bit safer on them. So it's going to be FCLGA 1851. So it's going to be land grid array, of course, and it's going to be 1851. That's good. We don't really care about much of this stuff. But yeah, security and reliability. It's good to have all these securities and reliabilities put in place as well. All of them, like so many different kinds, which is very good to have. But that's their new CPUs. They came out with a little bit more specifications since the last time I did, which is really good. So we'll get rid of that one. We'll go with the FIVR. So something like Jay's was talking about with their Intel FIVR. FIVR was implemented back in Intel 4th gen CPUs and is now getting a new inductor put in place to make sure certain settings are only going to be put in place. So it's their fully integrated voltage regulator. That's FIVR. If you want me to like read all of this, let me know. I am gonna be streaming for a bit here, so I've been streaming for an hour and a half. So if you want me to read all of this, just let me know. If not, then I can just say you can go to this link here, right here, and you can actually search it up on Intel's actual, or not Intel's page, but Tech Sites here has this in place, and then you can go on Intel's page as well, and you'll get the exact same information. But yeah, that's their new implementation that they're putting in. So to make sure that motherboard manufacturers can only do so much. Other implementations that they're doing, you can implement designs, blah, blah, blah. Don't care about that. Design example, like demo boards and device development kits. You can also go into other parts if you want to check out the new implementations that they're actually putting into these CPUs. Maximum frequency, so they're fmax. The maximum clock frequency at which a digital circuit can operate is called fmax. This is the maximum rate at which the output registers are updated. So they're only going to allow so much. The physical propagation delay of the signal across combination logic between the two conservative register stages limits the clock speeds. This propagation delay is a function of the complexity of the combinational logic in the path. So CPU and that talk to everything, right? So that's going to be part of what is going to be put into place for making sure there's only so much voltage for certain parameters. And motherboards manufacturers are only going to be limited to certain parameters on their stock boards. If you want to go to a different parameter, you'd have to overclock it manually as a consumer. The path in which most combinational logic elements and the highest delay limits the speed of the entire circuit. So depending on what temperature and what voltage is the highest delay, and limits the actual how much frequency the CPU is getting, basically. So part of their like Intel boost, it's gonna be put into place basically to make sure it's kind of like Ryzen in that way, to make sure it's less headache on them just in case something goes wrong down the line, and they can't be blamed for certain parts of CPU degradation if that is a thing. The speed limiting path is often referred to as the critical path. Yes. The fmax is calculated as the inverse of the critical path delay. You may want to have fmax, a high fmax, since it results in higher performance in the absence of other bottlenecks. A lot of things go into CPUs. Like I said, it's all put into place during lithography, and if you want to search up lithography, you can actually find a very long, very detailed CPU, how CPUs are made. It's over an hour long, and they'll tell you all about the beginning to the end process. They won't show, how certain vendors like Intel, AMD, NVIDIA, all these other vendors too that are coming out, how they make their actual CPUs during lithography, because they have different ways to do it. But yeah, If you wanted to search it on YouTube, there's a good video about how CPUs are made. And again, it's over an hour long. Very, very detailed though. But that's part of lithography, is how CPU, those big chips are made in that, because it's literally like they're taking certain parts, like the silicon sand and quartz sand, very pure, of course, very, very, very pure, like 99.9999999% pure, as low as they are, pure as they can get, basically. And they're making it, and they're like grabbing it, and they're stretching it out into this big big mountain, basically, like that, and then they're cutting it special way, and that's how you get those big discs, by the way, that have thousands of actual CPU dies built onto it. They look really cool. And if you go onto my Discord channel, the picture is an actual CPU chip that has like that rainbowed effect. I smashed open an old Xeon and showed what the actual CPU architect looks like. Not microcode. Microcode's a different thing than the architect, but there's certain parameters that are built into the actual CPU architect that can be updated, like the microcode. These are from Intel's community, so this is on Intel's page, but this is their actual forum on their page. And they just want to know a bit more about the dedicated logic register, DLR, and fmax. There's not much about it, so you have to go on to Intel's page because it's a new thing that's been coming out. Again, it came out back in 2008. Like I said, Intel 4th gen, but they're implementing new procedures into it to make sure that these motherboard manufacturers are all limited to a certain parameter, and not doing it so that way us enthusiasts can overclock it. Overclock the absolute snot out of them. We don't care about the voltages. We don't care about how the frequencies and that. We want to be able to clock it as high as we can with as much voltage as we can. But that should not be implemented into stock settings. And you should have extreme cooling like liquid nitrogen, liquid helium, or dry ice to be going to these voltages that motherboard manufacturers are just putting out of the box for CPUs. DLO is a number of huge registers. Fmax indicates the maximal frequency for the design. Under worst condition, lowest power, max temperature. So, like I said, as temperature goes up, the power will go down. Or the lowest power and is the maximum temperature, which is the worst case, like what happened now. With all these things that are going on, it's like it doesn't matter the temperature that the CPU was at, they were still implementing these voltages that should not have been put into place or been used, a certain parameter that was built into the actual architect. But yeah, you can search all these up on Intel's actual forums, on their actual website page. Everything has been confirmed. Again, old posts. Again, like I said, all of this was implemented back into the 4th gen CPUs. And finally, they're making them so that way motherboard manufacturers can only limit their boards to do so much with the CPU, which is great. Absolutely great. I do believe Ryzen did something like this a while back because they had issues with their CPUs blowing up as well. Ryzen, AMD. Had issues with the motherboard manufacturers, and the CPUs were blowing up and causing a lot of damage for the consumers. Which us consumers, we should not be having these experiences. Like the motherboard manufacturers, the CPU manufacturers, the RAM manufacturers should all be talking to each other. GPU manufacturers are on a different level, basically. So they've also implemented a lot of things a while back, like NVIDIA implemented a lot of things a while back, so that way like they have power limits, they have voltage limits, and they have voltage limits for cores and for memory. And yeah, you have to either know what you're doing to make sure you do a hardware mod to get more voltage than what the actual manufacturer is actually putting in place, or you have to download a new driver or BIOS for that graphics card. And again, you need to know what you're doing as well. Again, for enthusiasts, it's not for regular people. But regular people are making things very difficult for these manufacturers like Intel and blaming Intel only when it was the motherboard manufacturers as well. And I'm hoping soon that people are going to be seeing that it's also the RAM manufacturers putting in place too high of a voltage for keeping things stable onto, because remember, it's the microcontroller that talks to, like the CPU microcontroller talks to the actual RAM microcontroller that's built onto these DDR5 chips. So I'm hoping someone comes out with that, like a bigger content creator, and actually says something about that as well, because that's also part of the issue for instability. Not degrading, it's not like a degrading thing, it's actual stability issue. But yeah, that was great. I'm glad Jay's 2 cents came out with that video. I really am glad. Because like I said, I came out with this months and months and months ago, and people are telling me like I'm wrong and all that. I'm sorry to say, I know what I'm talking about. It sucks to hear the facts and the truth, because everything I said was true, because I've done the research on different board manufacturers and what actual Intel had in place for them, and the actual parameters that are built into the CPUs. Because there's certain parameters that are built into the CPU. As you raise certain voltages and do certain things, you go into a different parameter. And if you go into their top tier parameter at 500 amp, 1.6 volt, and it's on stock settings, things can arise. Motherboard manufacturers were putting this in place right off the bat. So many messages. So I'm hoping some people are learning like about certain things that have been happening over the past couple of years about Intel. There's a lot of things that go on with all these manufacturers and our personal computers that we really take granted for that came out years ago. Things have progressed quite a bit, and we're almost at a hard limit on what we can do with our actual hardware itself. We just have to keep raising the power, basically, or coming out with different efficiency codings that are better for it. But the actual architect of CPUs is not really changed much over the past 15 years, basically. It's basically the same. It's just gotten a lot smaller. We can put a bit more things into an actual chip. I lost the chat. There we go. We're back. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I lost the chat for like, I don't know how long you've been talking there, Skeet. I do apologize. I was literally still up around. Holy moly. My bad. My bad. I lost the chat for I don't know how long there. I was looking at and nothing was happening, so. The brick, yeah, more. They forgot that PC is for every. You got that correct there, Skates. You got that correct. The CPU wars are so real. Very, very true. Dry ice. Uh, yeah, no, I'm going into liquid nitrogen. Hopefully here in the future, like not too far into the future, I'm gonna be doing liquid nitrogen. To get into liquid helium, you have to have basically a team, a 6-person team, basically. Maybe a minimum of 4 people for liquid helium, but liquid helium is a completely different beast than liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen is negative 198, and liquid helium is like negative 300 and something, like 390 or something like that, 380, somewhere around there, 365. I could be wrong on that, but it's really a lot colder than liquid nitrogen, and it's a lot more difficult to work with. Yep, strategy games. Yep, yeah, you're right. Yeah, those games used a lot of cores. But yeah, I am basically just a game, like, not a gamer anymore. I used to be, but there's too many hackers on all the games that I played. I play first-person shooters. CSGO 2, I was top 1000 for a while, but when you get up into there, you're literally playing against nothing but hackers, like actual, almost every single game into like ranked games, nothing but hackers. So I literally quit playing those kind of games and just dedicated my time more or less to overclocking, PC hardware, and just helping out people that need help for their own personal computer. Even if they're a gamer or do editing, workstation type stuff, I'll help them out because I do know a thing or two about overclocking or getting better stability. I have thousands of hours overclocking DDR5 RAM as well, so if anyone needs help with DDR5 RAM overclocking, DDR4, DDR3, I do that as well. Yeah, Zeus warranty sucks because they don't want to eat up the cost of replacing parts. They always try to push it on somebody else. Yeah, boards used to be that price because the CPUs could only do so much back in the day. Like I said, with those implementations, the boards could only, or the CPUs could only do so much, but the motherboards themselves, you can put more voltage on certain motherboards. So some motherboards cost, yeah, $300-400 back in the day, but they're for basically enthusiasts, extreme overclockers. They weren't for normal consumers. So a lot of them really didn't sell. They're still really expensive nowadays, even those older motherboards for extreme overclocking, like that P6 motherboard that I have. These Asus motherboards, the Z97, the Z77, they're not cheap motherboards still. They're pretty good overclocking motherboards for the third gen Intels, fourth gen Intels, and for the Xeons or the i7 900s. I don't do much about handheld stuff. I'm trying to learn more about the ARM processors that are getting implemented into like, the Pi, Raspberry Pis and stuff like that because they are very efficient CPUs that work very good if you want to build yourself a very small or get into building some cheaper type stuff. My PC is like a $5,000 PC that um, I wanted to build myself, and I've tested so many different CPUs on it and so many GPUs and so many different kits of RAM onto it. So I I at the time I was doing gaming, so I wanted some decent hardware, but since I'm an enthusiast overclocker and that, I needed some decent hardware so that way there's a lot of safety implementations that are on motherboards, like certain fuses. Also, like let's say, you ever heard of like when lightning strikes by your place and then it blows up your TV or something like that? There's a, what do you want to call it? Uh, yeah, built into my power adapter here too. What's it called? Can't even think right now because I'm so trying to learn more about this Intel stuff. My mind's on that right now. Um, can't even think right now. But there's certain parameters or certain hardware that is built onto these high-end motherboards that make things a lot easier, especially if you're overclocking only. Like, or trying to update your BIOS very easy. It has a Q flash. I don't even have to have a CPU in my motherboard, by the way, to update my BIOS on my motherboard. I can take the CPU out, I can update it through a flash drive, hit the Q flash, and it does it all by itself. Um, Also has another part for a BIOS reset button. That's also very helpful because let's say I put in too much of a RAM overclock and it's doing a boot loop basically, which boot loops can last a while sometimes and then actually work. But when you start knowing about what you're doing, you'll know that you went too far or did not put enough voltage in for what you did, and then you have to like restart your PC. To make it faster, you can just hit the BIOS reset. It'll put everything back to stock settings. If you do overclocking and that, you have all of your profiles set, so that way you can just click on the profile that worked before, go off of that, and then set the what you know works again, and it makes things so much faster when you're just strictly trying to overclock extreme overclocking. Yeah, it's a very helpful feature. Yeah, some motherboards are so expensive nowadays, and due to the fact Intel's implementing this thing for board manufacturers can only do so much on stock, uh, they cannot say, "Oh, mine's the best," or "If you buy this motherboard, you're guaranteed to do this." No, it's only guaranteed if the consumer starts overclocking things from and that's not stock. So you start overclocking, that's not stock. I don't do anything stock. I take apart everything I own and I fix it up. Or I do soldering work too, so I'll buy like used broken components very cheap and I'll fix it up myself. As long as I know, I know I can do the work on it, I'll buy it and fix it up myself. Lightning kill. Wow. Yeah, lightning, yeah. It can. Because the motherboard didn't have wow. Basically, like when lightning hits, it can hit and then it can put power back up through whatever's connected to your house, and electronics don't like that happening basically. So certain motherboards like the one I have here, literally, let's say something's shortening out, like maybe the USB shortening out, the GPU, something messed up with the GPU and it's shorted out as well. It won't backtrack any electricity back to the motherboard and destroy other components. That's what's really nice about higher end motherboards, is that they have multiple different fuses set on the board, way more capacitors that's needed. The power phases are way beefier than what it needs to be. Like the power phases are good for like 800 amps, but yet the CPUs, even the Enthusiast CPUs, the maximum parameter is only at like 500 amps. Depends on like what you're doing with it. Really, you're not going to hit that amperage really, but it's all set in place with certain things. That's why I like certain higher end stuff. And before I buy certain components, I'll read up on it, make sure I'm getting what I want to get. If I can buy it used at a better price, I'll definitely buy it used, because I like to save some money so that way I can buy some more hardware, because more hardware for me is better, because then I can just do more testing. And then what I'll do here is I'll go to hardware bot. This one. Log in too. Make sure I log in. Get everything else set up here. Window capture. Nope, it's not working. Why? Okay, so we'll just do display capture then. Display capture works, I know that. We'll just make bobblehead me again. If you don't know what I'm doing, I've said this before on how to do it and set it up. New, good to go. Now I got bobblehead me. So I'll move myself over here, center again. We'll go back to here. So this is the hardwarebot.org. If you want to get into overclocking, or just not even overclock, just put on your PC specs. You can just set yourself up a profile and all that. I set myself up with my own profile and my own team. Cold Canadians is my team. And then we can go into, like I said, more hardware. So these are all the CPUs that I've worked with. Well, not worked with, but I've worked with a lot more CPUs than this. But this is what I have up on HardwareBot right now. Video cards. All the video cards that I've worked with. Video cards also goes with your integrated graphics. So, you know, your older HD graphics 2000, same thing, older HD graphics 4000, then your newer UHD graphics for Intel. And then same thing with motherboards. I do have I had more motherboards, but this is what I got right now. Set in place, memory, bunch of different memory. There should be more memory kits in place because I do have a lot more memory kits than this, especially for DDR3. But Samsung DDR3 is what I normally use. I use Samsung D-Die. It's okay. It's pretty good RAM to overclock. I just need to get a CPU for my 4th gen motherboard, and I'll be able to get a little bit better RAM overclocking because the 3rd gen overclocking for DDR3 isn't as good as the 4th gen. Hey, how's it going, Hart? Yeah, typical Intel. Yep, you got that right. Again, I'm 5th place in Canada for overclocking, and for my league, I'm in 1st place. I'm Luger, and my team's Cold Canadians. And I gotta get some tests done because looks like Mark DeMark is trying to get up into my 1st place. I like to stay 1st place for my division by the end of this year. That's why I'm going into the next competition here, which is Country Cup 2024, which will be the next one. And we can follow it on the esports page. It's opening soon. It's closing in 57 days, but it's not even open yet. But it starts November 1st and ends December 20th for this competition. Yeah, I hear you on there. I need to put more of my focus on to learning more about these newer CPUs, especially AMD CPUs. I know a lot about Intel, of course. Like I said, I go onto the forums, I go onto the Intel's page, and I search up. I try to find all the leaks. But I need to get some more. I need to get not Intel, sorry. I need to get AMD CPUs. I need to get AMD GPUs. I need AMD motherboards, AMD RAM, and new or old hardware. I need to start getting into that so that way I'm a little bit more universal that way. I have worked with AMD, but that's the old FX bulldozer processors and the Phenoms. Yeah, it's stability. It's always stability. Um, what I found with these newer Intels is with the RAM overclocking, instability is a very, very big thing. Like you gotta have voltages set perfectly. You gotta have parameters set perfectly. The secondary timings, you don't have to have them perfect, but to get them very, very low, you need to have certain actual chips, like Hynix M die or Hynix A die for DDR5 is the best. And then like there's so many things that go wrong or just not being stable basically, and you gotta really know what you're doing. You gotta tune every single core to get best efficiency and the best clock speeds, and there's so much. So much. Yeah, these new chips are actually looking really good. Yeah, they're tuned up due to the motherboard manufacturers, not anymore. Not with these 285Ks. Yeah, silicone lottery does take effect too. But what I've noticed too is if you like manually tune your CPUs and that, you can get really good performance just fine as long as you know about tuning your CPUs. Like I said, with my motherboard, I got really lucky with my Z690 Oris Master. It's a 4-DIMM motherboard, but I'm able to overclock my RAM very, very high. Like no one else has gotten their Z690 motherboards to the RAM speeds that I've gotten and with certain timings that I've gotten. So maybe I got lucky, but I've also spent thousands of hours tuning DDR5 RAM kits on this motherboard and multiple different CPUs. So the 12600K, 12900K, and 13900KF. I've done a lot of DDR5 tuning on it. I started with the 12900K, went to the 13900KF, and now I have a 12600K. The 12900K and the 13900KF, if you've listened before on my other streams, I used a direct die. So I've accidentally broke the CPU, cracked the CPU by using a direct die that wasn't technically made for it, and that was my fault. I don't know. I know Canada Computers is a good place to buy CPUs, GPUs, and everything too. Actually, I got my PC case, my EVGA DG76 or something like that. It's a really old PC case. I got it from Canada Computers. A lot of things though I got from Amazon because they have deals at certain times of years and you really can't beat it. Plus, when they have used products on there, the prices you can't beat either. The prices are just, and the shipping's just right there. Like my D5 water pump, I only paid $65, shipped to my place for $65. It's a $400 D5 reservoir water pump. So, for getting it for $65, I really couldn't, you couldn't beat it. Should make myself a coffee so that I can keep streaming. I actually never tried Newegg. Never tried Newegg. Just Amazon. Never tried Newegg. Done a lot of eBay because I do buying and selling on eBay. I am a 100% review rated eBay seller, so I get discounts for shipping in that. So it's quite nice. And yeah, these newer CPUs are not like the older CPUs, as in we can overclock it like twice the amount of speed due to the fact the nanometers are a lot smaller. The actual nanometers are a lot smaller now, and you can't do as much when you go that small because there could be voltage limits. There's going to be a lot more instability issues, and again, RAM motherboard manufacturers also taking place onto that too. Newegg uses Purelator. Nice. Yeah, it don't matter what shipping company I use or get when I buy whatever shipping company they use, as long as I get my product and it's not damaged, don't matter to me. As long as it says what it is, it's good to me. Uh, Maybe later on today I'll be doing day 2 of the Xeon giveaway. So if anyone's new to the channel right now, I am doing a giveaway after the 10th day. So I did the other day, the first day of live streaming for the giveaway. There's gonna be 10 days of the live giveaway. So if you subscribe and comment on one of those live streams, that's a giveaway live stream. There's gonna be 10 of them. Well, it's gonna be 10 days. If you comment and are a subscriber, you could win a chance to win a Xeon X5570. If you don't want or don't need that CPU, you can give it forward and I will redraw the name out of a hat. This is not part of the giveaway stream, and yesterday was not either. You have to read that my stream is part of the giveaway for it to be it. In Canada, they'll be 100% free. It'll be 100% free, but if you're outside of Canada, there'll be a $15 shipping charge, and that's literally just to help cover some cost of the shipping because the shipping's going to cost me way too much outside of Canada. But I don't mind shipping it if you don't mind paying that $15. Most happy PC purchase in the last 6 months. I haven't bought anything in the last 6 months for PCs, to be honest. I haven't had the money to buy new stuff. I've always had this hardware for quite some time now, and I just try to show or bring it out when I can. But I haven't bought anything in the past 6 months for PC hardware or water cooling or anything like that. And sadly, I just haven't. I have been looking right now at some EVGA GTX 560 Ti. I have been looking at a couple of RX 580 8GB because that'll be part of the competition that's coming out. I need to have AMD products, and I would like to get more AMD products as well, or hardware. So, and they're very, very cheap right now, and I would like to maybe get them, but again, I'm very cheap too, so. Been looking at some EVGA GTX 770s, some EVGA GTX 670s as well, and those are just from like Facebook Marketplace that are fairly close to my location and selling very, very good price. Also, someone's selling a FCP or FCLGA CPU, which is the E5603, literally brand new in box still. I might want to get that. I'm an enthusiast. I will never probably open that CPU or ever use it because it's literally like a brand new box, never opened, and it's in mint shape. So I might pick that up, show that on a stream maybe. I know a lot of my subscribers and viewers actually like seeing the older hardware and also enthusiasts that way. Oh, again, I'm not looking like if you could use the hardware yourself, I mean, by all means, I'm not looking for my subscribers or viewers to send me stuff. It's a very nice gesture though. If you want, I do have a link to like my email. You can send some stuff that maybe you would want to send to me over email, and then we can chat from there. I just gotta verify a bunch of things first before accepting that kind of stuff. And again, I don't want my subscribers to do that. I just want my subscribers to enjoy what I'm doing, what I provide for my channel, and hopefully learn some things from it. That's my main thing on this channel, is just giving out straight facts, honesty, and helping out people basically. I'm not looking for my subscribers to do anything for me. The worst purchase I've ever done though would be this Z390 Phantom Gaming 4S motherboard. They were selling pretty good price. I bought two of them thinking they were a decent motherboard. I would have one for a spare because I do hardcore overclocking just in case something went wrong. It wasn't like that most high end, but I thought this motherboard was a good purchase, so I bought two of them. No, don't buy this motherboard. You can only overclock the RAM and put up to 1.35 volts to the RAM. If you have Samsung B-Die, you know you're going to need over 1.4 volts to be able to get some decent clock speeds and timings out of it. So this is the worst purchase I ever did, was this motherboard. But as you can see, I've done a lot of tests with it. Got some decent scores, like 9th place. I think I got some third places. Yeah, some third places. First place for 3D Mark Vantage Extreme, but I could have done way better. First place on Geekbench 6 Compute. That'd be my 8700K at 5.1 gigahertz. But I sold all this stuff because at the time I needed money, and that motherboard I really didn't want. Oh, this was actually with my GTX 1070 that are hard power limit modded, which is a EVGA model. And here it is here. Here's a picture of it. It's the EVGA for the win hybrid model for the 1070, which I currently don't have right now. Somebody else has it. I really want it back. Yeah, see, parts collecting dust is better than parts in the e-waste, right? And that's how I look at it. I'd rather not see some parts that could be either put up on the wall or shown, or maybe given to someone that could still use them, because they probably still work just fine. But if you want to message my email, you just click on, it should be up there somewhere, the More tab. You just click on the More tab there, and you should be able to go to the About, so More About Me, and then you can go and message my my email and contact me directly. It's more or less for sponsors and that for contact me through email, but if a subscriber wants to help out the channel and that too, I don't mind them contact me through that. Like I said though, I have to go through a bunch of verification thing before I can get things sent to me. I do have a subscriber sending me stuff, a very nice guy who had a stroke and can't do as much things with his hands as he used to, and would like to actually help out my channel as well. So he's sending me a little care package later on. Very nice guy. Very nice guy. But yeah, again, I have 6 records, 8 silvers, 14 bronze, and 24 fourth and 5th place, which is pretty good too. It's definitely not like top, right? The top guys are absolutely insane. Insane. Especially Salty Croissant. He is a fellow Canadian, French Canadian, that he's on Team WEG, which is a US team. But Salty Croissant will be helping out Team Canada for this competition, I hope. Yes, for this competition he will be. And that is not what I want. There we go. Yeah, Country Cup 2024. It's going to have CPU, GPUs, memory, and tweaking. And Salty Croissant's down here. I'll click on him and show he's got 117 records, 95 silvers, 80 thirds place, and 99 fourth and 5th place. Again, he's with Team WEG. He's in Team WEG, and he's in Canada. He is our best overclocker for Canadians. Salty Croissant. Absolutely insane. I'm hoping to be up to where he is here in the future, maybe someday, right? That's my goal, to be competition for him, basically. I'm 5th place, by the way, in Canada. 1st place for my division, but he's 1st place overall. He's absolutely insane. He's at this every single day, doing new components, brand new components, and has spent basically his entire days and weekends doing this, which I like to do as well. Not bad though. What should we look at though? Other motherboards. So like these other motherboards here, like this Dell Acer and this Intel motherboard, these are just cheap motherboards. They're non-overclocking motherboards, but I do have them, especially if there's a competition that's just for like how many motherboards frequencies you can put into the competition. That's what I have them for. It's just for extra. It's just a little extra. I have totes and totes of computer hardware too, so. And the other day I did go through my older graphics cards, close to vintage graphics cards. I went through my DAS. I'm currently fixing up my DAS, my direct attached storage. It's built in a small Lenovo case, small ThinkCenter Lenovo case, holds 6 hard drives and has its own built-in power supply that I use for powering the hard drives. And hopefully here soon I'd like to make it all out of aluminum, but it's not cheap. Aluminum's not cheap. If anyone's just joining the stream, welcome. Hopefully you're having a good day. I might go make myself a little bit of food and a coffee though, and I will be back. So actually I'm probably gonna do that. I'll probably be about 5-6 minutes. I won't be too long. But I will be right back. So be right back. If I can figure out how to do that. Boom. All right, I'll be right back. If anyone has questions or just wants to go to the Discord channel as well, I'll be right back. Alright, I am back. Just give me a second here and I'll get things all set back up. I did want to check out which one was it? In 3D Mark Vantage Extreme. So this is with the 13900 KF. So before I got my RAM kit that I have now, like just before. That I didn't have enough time with the RAM kit with the CPU because I broke the CPU with, like I said, with the direct die. So I know not to do that with any direct dies anymore. I'll just do it the way I normally overclock with a CPU water block, and I'll just lap my CPU IHS, not delit it. Just because these CPUs nowadays, especially these this 13900K and even the 12900K, it's such a small CPU die. You can't put much mounting pressure on them, else you can break them. And here's the same system. Only thing different is I took out the D5 reservoir combo here. This is a Corsair. Very, very nice water pumps, by the way, D5 water pumps. These are very nice. They have so many different ways to configure them. And then all I did was switch out to the thermal take one that I have now. Because this one here, you can actually control it with like a fan header. This D5 pump has a manual control on it. So you can set how much water you want to go through it, fast or slow, manually. Connects with a Molex. Yeah, still the same exact system, just with that's when I had the 1300 KF though. And what we can do, exit. Then we go 3D Mark here, check out the actual scores. So like a 4K gaming PC will be around 44,000, and my score was literally double that. Yeah, just give me 1 second. I'll get the camera all set back up too here. Oh, why did it take me right out? There we go. If anyone's new to the stream, welcome. I will be setting the camera up again in 1 second here. And yeah, Canada, we are right now in 5th place. Hopefully here we'll be in at least 4th place. Australia, going hard. I know there's one team in Australia that's really good. Yeah, Australia OC here. They do a lot. 373 members, and they do a lot of liquid nitrogen over there. A lot. App Gamer, I don't know what you're trying to say there, but hello. There are moderations in place, so If you say something that doesn't make sense, or just trying to say something harmful or something like that, swearing, you will not be able to say it in the chat. So please be respectful. And I will set the camera back up. What up? I am back. I think I can make Bubblehead me a little bit bigger though here. Here we go. Get some things all set back up. I might go grab some graphics cards though, maybe. Actually, I might go grab my LGA 1366 motherboard PC. It also has a custom water loop onto it, so I might go grab that. Because I do want to put that into my P100 Silent Antec case, which is an older case. It's massive, absolutely massive. So I do need to make a light streaming PC for when I take apart my main PC and get it ready for the competition. Rethermal paste, clean it all up, make sure everything looks good. Make sure the SMDs that I had to solder back onto it when I got the board, because they were falling off and broken. That's why I got a really good buy on this motherboard. See if they're still looking good. Might show that on stream too. But if you've seen the beginning of this live stream, it's about what I've talked about months and months ago about Intel and how it wasn't just Intel's fault. There's also motherboard manufacturers putting in place for stock settings, like stock, no one's doing any overclocking on it, that they were putting in too much voltage and allowing it to go to a different parameter, in which generally hardcore overclockers would go to that parameter instead of it being on stock settings, just so that way they can say that their motherboard's the best. And it's now coming out in the works, and Intel's found out motherboard manufacturers basically screwed them over, so they're implementing into the actual architect itself the different parameters to make sure motherboard manufacturers cannot do that again. And they've told the motherboard manufacturers and have limited them from here on out to make sure anything that's stock is literally going to be to a certain parameter and cannot go higher. And if you want to go higher to the other parameter for hardcore overclocking or overclocking in general, you'll have to manually do it. I only compete on here. I haven't gone anywhere like around the world to do the actual competitions like live, basically, like the way it used to be. But I do it here. I do competitions here in Canada from wherever I am. And with this country, the country cup, so the team cup I was in, I got 27th place. This country cup is everyone in that country is participating. So in Canada here, like I said, I use antifreeze in my water and stuff, because that's all I have right now is a bunch of custom water loops, a whole bunch of radiators and stuff like that. I use antifreeze so that way I can go down to -30 for the water temperature without harming my PC. Eventually liquid nitrogen and dry ice though. Just very expensive to get the actual CPU blocks, memory blocks, and GPU blocks. Plus I also need to get myself a capture card still, which is very expensive. But I'm slowly getting there. I've upgraded my camera already to a 4K camera. And I try to keep getting more PC components before I go into getting more stuff for make my streams and videos look a bit better. I just try to do what I can, basically. But I do everything from here. Basically, like what you'll be seeing, I'll more or less I'm moving around a lot more because there's the competitions. There's like on one motherboard I could be running 5, 6, 7 different kind of CPUs just on that motherboard, so I'll have to replace the CPU, rethermal paste, redo everything, and it's a lot more focused on the competition than I am on the stream or video. But when I'm doing the videos, I try to stop. I try to you know, talk about what I'm doing, what I'm using, what I prefer to use, what's recommended, not recommended to do, that kind of thing. But I'm more focused on the competition than I am like right now talking to the chat. But I compete here. Eventually in the future, I'm hoping I can travel and actually do competitions like in Japan and around the world, right? Meet up with other fellow extreme enthusiasts like a Hafir. He is a um, moderator for it. He checks over scores and he lets people know that maybe didn't post up a validated score, like redo this because this was wrong. So I have him added on to this as well, the hardware bot. So if anyone's getting into this, add Legahoff here, LEEGHOOFD, add him. So that way you can either talk to him directly or not, or you can even ask me questions and I can show you how to validate because I've been doing this for a while and I know about certain rules for the competition. I read up on the rules because the rules are set in place for certain things. Like for 7-zip right here, 7-zip is a CPU memory intensive type test. Use 1, 2, and 5 processor cores in total. No core unlocking allowed. Disabling cores is also not allowed. Or core unlocking is allowed. Disabling cores is not allowed. So if you have certain CPUs where you can unlock that extra core to get the 5 core out of it, you can use it. But you cannot disable a 6 core CPU to 5 core and be able to use it. That kind of thing. Plus also the verification screenshots using certain CPU tabs like the CPU 2.0 and it has to have CPU motherboard memory tab, and that's just for this test. Other tests will be different. Yeah, I used to watch the LAN parties, all the LAN parties like with Kingpin and all of them, going head to head. It never really took off, to be honest. Not a lot of people watched it, so they stopped promoting that kind of thing. But that used to be the best, to be honest. That was good times. That was really when CPU overclocking, GPU, motherboard overclocking, that was really the thing. Just a lot of people weren't into it. They didn't care. And now it's starting to take off again, but more people need to get into it. More people need to watch it, really. Because there's still tests done uh, close to 20 years ago that still haven't been beaten today. That's what I would like to get into. Yeah, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, stage 5, and stage 6. So that's here, your stage 1, 7-zip, stage 2, Geekbench 5 single core AMD, stage 3 is 3D Mark CPU Profile Max CPU socket, and that will be LJ1155, LJ1200, and LJ1700, so I can go into this test. I can do it. So that's good. AMD single core, I don't have AMD processors right now, so right now, that's right now. Yeah, but there's so many things that go on with the competition. Like this is just the CPU portion of this competition, right? So there's 6 different stages for CPU, 6 different stages for GPU, which all of these are great tests to run. These are really good tests to run, really fun. Not very long tests too, which is also nice. Then you got memory, you got 5 stages for memory. Again, very good test. The Y Cruncher 2.5B is not a short test, but it's a very, like, you gotta make sure things are very stable. 2.5B is a stable test, right? Then you also got tweaking, which has another 5 stages. And again, Y Cruncher, but it's only Pi 1B. You gotta have an 8 core, and you're only allowed to go to 5.5 gigahertz onto it. So it's really about how well you know how to overclock your RAM. Black Friday is coming. You got that right. Again, PieFast by Benchmate, and all these have to be by the ones that say by Benchmate have to be Benchmate. 5 gigahertz maximum. So again, it's all about how well you know how to overclock your actual RAM. 6 gigahertz on this one, 6 gigahertz on this one, 5 gigahertz on this, and you're only allowed to have your RAM at CL28. So you have to have your RAM set at CL28, and you can see how well your tuning is for RAM, really. And I have thousands of hours on RAM, so CL28 is let's go. I'll probably be using my 12600K and my RAM kit that I have now, which is Hynix MDI, and I can go CL28 probably up to 6400 megatransfers per second, but it's all about the timing too. The timings can really give you a better performance. And this is for 32B, which is not a short test, by the way. And we only got 8 days, 18 hours, and 18 minutes left. Yeah, you can do all of these things from wherever you are. You just got to go through, make sure that you're doing everything on each specific test and making sure everything is actually verified. There's some things on the CPU test that have to be to like a 0.1% verification, which is, yeah, make sure everything's up to date to what they want and make sure it's really verified. Which one is it? Oh, maybe that's for the GPU test. Maybe for the GPU test. One of these tests is, it's gotta be extremely tight tolerance for verification. And like these graphics cards here are not allowed. I forgot which one it is. One of these tests though, is like the verification's gotta be like a 0.1%, which very tight tolerance for that verification. Yeah, Black Friday's coming, but like I said, I like to buy stuff used as well. It's a lot cheaper buying used. A lot cheaper buying used. Either like Facebook Marketplace or eBay is where I try to get my stuff. Amazon's only when I need to get brand new stuff, or if there's some used stuff that's insanely good price, then I will pick that up. But for stuff that I need, um, like my NVMe drive, like hard drives as well, I try to get brand new because I want to make sure I have the warranty on them just in case something goes wrong. Or let's say someone says it's at this percentage, but when I get it and use an actual checker on it, it's at like 60%, then yeah, then you know that you bought something that you shouldn't have bought, basically. And then I could have bought it new for not too much more, basically, as well. Yeah, Intel stepped it up like I said they were going to. They had to step it up. They had to show who's the boss around the CPU market, and they lost 2% in their actual CPU market, but they still have 78% of the CPU market, so they're still good to go. And I don't think they lost the 18A contract with their investors, which is also good. And then with their 20A, the investors are going to see that they implemented a bunch of new stuff to make sure that this never happens again, and the investors will probably invest more money, which will actually help out Intel as well. Remember, us consumers, we're nothing. We're basically nothing for Intel. We might have numbers and that, but more numbers are being bought by these data centers and that, and they're buying these like extremely expensive CPUs, and they're buying thousands or hundreds of thousands of them at a time. So again, we're consumers. They don't look at us too much. So what really happened was the motherboard manufacturers were seeing that Intel's not really looking at them right now, so that they literally implemented some things that they should never have done. And now Intel's found out, and they're going, tis tis, motherboard manufacturers, now you get to go all your boards, all the motherboard manufacturers are only going to be the same. You might have a little slight tolerance on getting a little away with some things, but you won't be able to do what you did before to us. Because Intel ate all that warranty, Intel ate a lot of backlash, and the motherboard manufacturers should have been the ones that ate a lot of the warranty and backlash as well, but they didn't, because Intel did have these settings and things built into the actual architect that the motherboard manufacturers actually took advantage of, which they shouldn't have. That's why we have all these degraded CPUs or instability issues. Also, RAM manufacturers too with their XMPs. That's why I had to show that Jay's 2 cents. I was just going through YouTube. I'm like, wait, what's this? And I just literally watched the first 5 minutes. I'm like, finally, a big YouTuber that's actually speaking out. More or less probably because Intel used to be a good sponsor for them as well. And once he made some videos about hating on Intel, Intel's like, well, we're not sponsoring you at this time because of what you said. So maybe that's reason why, though. Who knows? We don't know what happened behind closed doors, right? It's supposed to be warmer today. It's only 19 degrees. Humidity is at 49%. Dave is still very happy. And Dave is very happy still. Alright, I think that's enough showing that. I can get a bobblehead mode here and maybe talk to some people that will have any kind of questions, or if anyone's actually new to my channel, let me know what the channel's about. I'll let you know, or if you have any questions about what I do on this channel, I'll let you know. I do know a thing or two about a thing or two, not just PC hardware and that, but I do know quite a bit about many things. But generally this channel is all about PC hardware. Overclocking in general, RAM, CPU, motherboards, and GPUs. Not really about like your hard drives, NVMe's, or SSDs, but I do know a lot about them. I do make my own DAS, NAS. I do pay for Unraid as well. I do have my own dual CPU server as well, HP ProLiant ML350 G6. Looks like I did fix the issue with dropping frames. I've barely dropped any frames and streaming for almost 3 hours now, so barely dropped any frames. Quite nice. Kind of fixed the issue. Very happy. And maybe I will go grab that PC though, the one with my LGA 1366 motherboard and a custom water loop in it. I do want to take that out of that PC case and put it in my big Antec case that's here. Maybe I'll show that. I showed it on other streams. Oh no, it's just gonna be the bright light. So on top of there, that you can see, it's where I had the speaker, so that way you can actually hear the video on YouTube there about Jay's 2 cents talking about Intel implementing new stuff into their actual architects to make sure motherboard manufacturers can only do so much. But this is the case. It's absolutely massive. Sorry about the bright light there. Maybe I'll grab that because I do, like I said, I do need to make a small live streaming PC. It doesn't have to be a beastie PC. I might use my X5650 in it, which is a 6-core 12-thread Xeon. So I might use that, or I might put in my i7-3770K. Still not sure on that. I already got a power supply in there ready to go for it. Because like I said, I do need to take apart my main PC here. This one over here. I do need to take apart that this PC right here. It's been together for a couple of years like this now and has been very good, but I gotta take it apart and actually re-thermal paste it, and I gotta clean out the actual water block right here, the mono block. Clean it out, make sure it's all good to go for the tests, get as much water flow through the fins as possible. The GPU, I don't have to worry about my 3070 Ti. I've already, whoa, sorry about that. I've already fixed up and cleaned up my 3070 Ti. My 3070 Ti does have 2 EVGA fans in it. By the way, the Zotac 3070 Ti amp hollow, you can put in the fans from like a GTX 1080 Ti into it. They fit no problem. The only thing is you actually have to splice the wires and solder them because you don't need the 4 connectors. You just need the 3 connectors from the actual EVGA fans to make it work. Maybe I'll show that sometime on a stream too. I'll take apart my 3070 Ti whenever I clean it up next. Maybe after the competition, I'll take it apart and show how I did that. And maybe show the copper modding, because the copper modding does help quite a bit for especially the Micron GDDR6X memory. Hopefully I'm up to date with the chat. Before it was like really weird. Okay, good. And then there's another, I'm pretty sure it's just a video. It might have been a live stream though. I did show how I copper modded my Corsair Dominator Titaniums. They are the single-sided dies though, so I copper modded the back side of the chips, and that actually helps quite a bit for taking away some of the heat, especially for when I'm going to be doing some pretty good frequencies, mega transfers on it, like 8200, at least 8000 on the tests. The one test, like I said, it's going to be CL28, so I'm going to try to get 6400 mega transfers or a little bit higher. And these are Hynix M dies, so I can tune the secondary timings very tight. And the primary timings have to be at certain primary timings to get the CL28, so I'll have to show that too. And unlike Hynix A die, the Hynix M die, you don't need as much voltage to get everything stable. It's very nice. Yeah, I'll probably do that. But I should go grab that PC case, so I'll be right back. And this is one of my smallest PC cases. Wow, the medium small case. My small cases are like mini ITX cases. This one can actually hold almost a full size. Hey, how's it going, Fred? I'm back too. I just got the P6 X58 board and custom water block, like I said. Custom water loop in this. I'm probably just gonna take this out and put it into my P100 Silent Antec case. Just because that's a bigger case, and then I don't know. Maybe I'll keep it in here. Everything is set up pretty good. Maybe I will keep it in here actually. Oh no, I can't keep it in here. That's right. Because I can't actually put in a power supply because it's too small of a case, so I actually can't put the power supply in here. As you can see, the radiator covers it all up. So I'll have to do that. But this one here, I can't keep like out here, especially at nights now. It's getting really cold. There are chances of the actual water, there's only water in this one here, so there's actual chances of it actually freezing and breaking things, so I don't want that to happen. Wow. But that'll be something I get done here. Might do that on stream, I might not. Now, is there anything else I need to grab? Nah. I was thinking about maybe getting my 2080 Super, maybe. But I don't think I really need it. I'll just grab my 3070 Ti after like making up this PC to stream. I'll just grab the 3070 Ti because it does have the encoder I want. The encoder on it is very nice. So maybe I'll just do that instead. Just grab that encoder off of that GPU. And might be tomorrow's live stream. We'll see. That might be tomorrow's live stream of me disassembling my main PC and cleaning it all up, like taking everything apart, cleaning it right up, like taking apart the actual mono block, taking apart everything off the motherboard and cleaning it all up too, so that way I can check to make sure everything's real good on it. If anyone's new to the channel, we do have the Discord as well. If you want to join that, just click the link. And I'll be right back again. Just gonna see if I can go grab a couple things that I might need for this actual PC. I might put together my dad's. I haven't done a whole lot. Like I said, I was gonna bondo up the actual case itself and repaint it so that way it looked really nice, but I haven't done that since I threw my back out. It's been quite a challenge to be doing a whole lot, so I've been trying to take it easy. Like that was bringing out this little case with the motherboard in it with the custom water loop was quite a challenge. So I'll be like right back, literally like 2 minutes. If anyone has any questions, just send it in the chat. Or like I said, I do have that Discord, and you go to the Discord as well. You can post your PC stuff, new hardware, old hardware. If you have any questions, there's actually a page dedicated to that as well. Also, Frosty, there is a Frosty there is a moderator. So if you have any questions, just ask him about the channel. He's gonna find you, yeah. I feel like The Walking Dead. My back is just so dang sore. We got it. We got it. Ugh. All right, if anyone's actually seen my videos and streams before, that is my DeWalt case, one of my DeWalt cases with PC stuff in it. Also pencils and so many other things like RAM kits, CPUs, screwdrivers that I need, certain things that I need for my PC overclocking as well. All my Windows keys, flash drives, like flash drives with my RAID on it, unRAID. It's not, I don't have my NAS set up, so that's why it's not in use. But yeah, a bunch of CPUs I'm gonna be needing for the competition. Like I don't know if I'm gonna, yeah, like this i7 930, i7 920, those CPUs will be for the competition. For this motherboard right now in it is the X5570, which is part of my giveaway stream. One lucky subscriber is gonna get a Xeon CPU, an X5570. All they need to do is comment in the live comment, be a subscriber on one of my giveaway streams. After the 10th day of that giveaway stream, I'll be drawing a name. If you don't want that CPU or would like to pass it forward, pass it on, I can redraw the name. You just gotta let me know. It will be free for anyone in Canada. If you're outside of Canada, there'll be a $15 shipping charge because it's gonna cost me a lot more than $15 outside of Canada for the shipping charge. So anywhere inside of Canada, I can do it for free though because I'll eat the shipping charge for that much, for how much it is. But that'll be after, and that'll be after the 10th day of my giveaway stream. So far I've done one day. But I do need to lap up my another X5570. I have a bunch, so I do need to lap up one of them for the competition, and just to show how I lap the CPUs. Also need to get more thermal paste. So I do make my own thermal paste too, but I might be getting some higher quality thermal paste just for the competition. I'm out of Thermal Grizzly Extreme Cryonaut. Yeah, I guess I could show my dead 12900K. So here's my 12900K. That's no good. Crack the die on it from using a direct die. Don't use direct dies on these CPUs because as you can see, the actual chip itself is very, very small and there's a very high chance of it cracking. So that is a caution. Caution. I guess I could show what I'm doing. So yeah, this is just one of the DeWalt cases that I have. This one has a drawer that I keep, like I said, all CPUs, a bunch of other things in one drawer, and then just a bunch of like Wi-Fi cards, small hard drives that I don't use. These small hard drives, because they don't have longevity as the big hard drives, and I need longevity. But this is free, so that's why I have it. It's 1 terabyte as well, so if I ever do need extra storage, I could use it. Then I have DDR5 RAM kit, another DDR5 RAM kit. This is Micron DDR5, 5200 mega transfers, but they're alright, but they're not good. You can only go up to about 5600 mega transfers on this, so they're not great. Cheap though, if you want to get a pair, they are cheap. This is Samsung. So this is Patriot Steel Viper Steels. So Patriot Viper Steels, and these are 4000 kit. So 4000 megahertz mega transfers per second nowadays, but megahertz, and these are Samsung B die. So if you do any DDR4 or have DDR4, Samsung B die is the what you're looking for. And these are just SK Hynix DDR3. I have a whole bunch of kits in here. I'm not gonna take them all out. I'll take them all out when I start doing the competition, just to show what each kit can do, what performance you're looking at, really. I got some screws. I do have a box full of screws, but I have like drill bits and other things in here as well that I could use, just for PC stuff. Copper shims. So here's some copper shims that I use for copper modding all of my stuff. And then you can buy certain thicknesses and then sand them down so that way they are perfectly for what you need. Because not every component has the same thickness that you might need it for. Quite nice to have too. I have bags of them too, so it's also nice. Yeah, the guaranteed 9,000 mega transfers per second on their new CPUs. Cam 2, yeah, I've been talking about Cam 2 since Cam RAM. Cam 2 compression modules. They are for laptop basically, but now Cam 2 is being implemented into actual desktop motherboards. So, and the only problems that I can see is the temperatures are going to be very hard to keep cool. You'd probably like need a cooler for it, like a cooler designed for it, or water cool it at least. But they seem like they would work better than actual RAM sticks, random access memory. So yeah, that me too. Again, I'm not a rich person, so I don't have any of those yet, but I do a lot of research on PC components, new, old hardware, doesn't really matter. I read up on it. I do know a thing or two, so if you have questions, just let me know. I'll see if I can answer them. Oh yeah, I need a screwdriver. Screwdriver. Yeah, they say can't. They say it's gonna be cooler. But when you have all those chips, there's still gonna be about the same amount of chips on them, and they're all gonna be right beside each other, all on one single compression module. That's gonna be more heat, in my opinion, instead of having multiple RAM sticks that are spaced out where air can actually pass through them. Now it's just gonna be literally one single block of all those RAM chips, and they're gonna be at a higher frequency. So it's gonna be, in my opinion, I think they're gonna be quite hot. We'll see. I've been right. I've been right since the Intel. I've been right about a lot of things that are just coming out now. So we'll see if I'm right or wrong about it. We'll see. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But generally, I've been right for basically everything I've said in the past. I've had people come on my streams and say I don't know what I'm talking about. But from the past few months and literally the past couple of days, things have been came out that I've said literally about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, and it's true. Everything I said back then was true. It's coming out now, and every other content creator or whatnot was bashing Intel, but again, it was also the motherboard manufacturers that were causing the issue, and Intel's now implementing new new stuff into their new CPU, so that way motherboard manufacturers are limited on stock settings. They were using stock settings, but going into Intel's higher up setting basically for extreme overclockers, and they were taking those stock settings and literally implementing 1.6 volts into the CPU. So I've been right all along about that, even though people said I was wrong, and I kept up saying, no, I'm right. I know I'm right. I do the research. I know what I'm talking about. I've worked with these CPUs. I've worked with different motherboards. I've worked with many different kind of kits of RAM from DDR3, DDR4, multiple kits of them too, and DDR5, multiple kits. I've worked with different motherboards, and guess what? Gigabyte so far has been the best one for not implementing too much voltage and still having nice uh, stability and frequencies of the CPU and the RAM. Yes, yeah, Cam 2 is already in laptops. I've said this way back, again, way back when the leak happened. Literally, I was one of the first people that knew about Cam 2 memory, and I showed how it works compared to other RAM kits. I've already gone through all this in other videos and other live streams as well. I've already been through all this Cam 2 and Cam memory. Cam memory is for laptops, Cam 2 memory is for now desktops. No, I don't even think if even if you overclock them, I'm pretty sure they're gonna be maybe maybe they have a different kind of chip design, but you still have to have those chips that go to the frequencies that they're saying. Like they're saying minimum 8,000, but the standards could be around 9,000 megatransfers per second. That's we're talking heat there, kind of like your memory on your GPU is the same thing. You got now GDDR6X memory. So GDDR6 memory is very hot to begin with, like very hot. The working temperature is up to 110, and that's all on stock settings. As soon as you start overclocking it, you have chances of ruining the memory if you don't know how to modify them. And I modify everything I have with copper or something like that. So yeah, I've already been through all this in many videos and many live streams months and months and months ago when no one's even heard about Cam 2 memory. I've already gone through MSI is the ones that are implementing it first with their Thunder something motherboard or whatever it is. They're implementing it first. They were the first ones to implement it into an actual motherboard, a desktop motherboard. And that came out in Computex. Alright, take her easy, this guy. Thanks for joining. Again, I may be a small YouTuber, have only been doing this for less than a year, but stuff that I have said from the beginning is now everyone's starting to realize everything I've said from back then is true, and 100% of it has been true. I do the reading, I do the facts, I go onto the actual manufacturers' web pages, go through everything that they say for either Intel, Ryzen, motherboard manufacturers, all the motherboard, Asus, Gigabyte, all of them. I go through all their all their everything that's designed into the board. Same thing with RAM kits and stuff like that. I have thousands upon thousands of hours on just tuning DDR5 memory on Intel. Just Intel DDR5 memory tuning. I have thousands of hours. So I do take my due diligence, and I do learn as much as I can about certain products and certain manufacturers. And Intel was the one that ate the warranty on this Intel degradation type thing. And way back, I was the one that said, nah, it's not just Intel. Yeah, Intel had this parameter in place, like they've always had an extra parameter for the hardcore overclockers. They have this parameter set for us, and the motherboard manufacturers had too much leniency. They did not talk to Intel about certain things, and they implemented it into the stock settings, the parameter in which should have been only in place for extreme enthusiasts. And now Intel is implementing their own thing into their new CPUs, and from here on out, and also how it has been implemented into the actual like microcode updates. To make sure that they can only go to performance mode and not go into the extreme OC mode. Because as soon as you go to extreme OC mode, you're into a different parameter, which is the 500 amp at 1.6 volts. And all the motherboard, not all, Asus was the main one, but a lot of the motherboard manufacturers wanted to have the best of the best motherboards to have, say, oh, I can do this frequency, I can do this kind of RAMs and that. But What they're doing was they were going into the parameter set for extreme overclockers and putting it on their stock settings. And I've said this way back. It wasn't just Intel's fault. Intel took the blame for it because they actually did not know, because they were not talking to the motherboard manufacturers. Like I said, way back, they were not talking to them as much because they have more us consumers, the motherboard manufacturers. For us consumers, Intel doesn't make that much money off them. They make money off of like their 18As, and now in 2025 they're 20As for like extremely big data centers, and their investors that are invested into that kind of stuff, like their high-end Xeons and stuff like that, where those CPUs are multiple thousands of dollars per CPU, and those investors are investing the money into those because the data centers are buying either tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of those CPUs at a time. And us consumers, we're buying these $600, $700 chips, and we think that Intel should be going to us about that. But Intel is like, we'll just eat the warranty, we'll take some of the blame. And then now Intel is just like, oh, these motherboard manufacturers are using this parameter. Like, we're giving them way too much leniency here. So what they did now is implement into the actual architect that and talk to actual motherboards and that too, saying you can only do this now, and if you go past this, any warranty or anything like that is all on you. If you break our CPUs, you have to replace it, not us. And I said this way back too, Intel needs to step it up, make certain parameters, and guess what? They did. I'm glad they did. Maybe they heard me, maybe they didn't, but I said this way back. Peace. Oh, thank you, Frosty, for saying peace to him. Yeah. I just start blabbing because people need to know about certain things that have happened in the past, and Intel did eat the warranty on a lot of things that they did not need to. The motherboard manufacturers, like I said way back in videos and on live streams, that motherboard manufacturers were implementing into their own stock settings things they should not have been, and now it's coming out into play, and Intel's found out, and now Intel's like, tisk tisk, motherboard manufacturers, now you all get uh, the shit end of the stick. Basically, all of you can be the same now. None of you motherboard manufacturers will be like, oh, my motherboard can do this, my motherboard can do that. Now all of you will be limited to what you can do, not have full freedom like they did before. And the CAM2 memory, like I said, CAM memory, not CAM2, but CAM memory was implemented into laptops first. I've talked about this when it was leaked about. Literally, I was like, I think one of 5 people that was talking about it at the time. I found out about it as well. I made a leak video about it as well, CAM2 memory, and how it's going to be implemented into desktops, MSI with their, like I said, some Thunder board or something like that. They actually have CAM2 memory already into that motherboard. So we'll see. I've talked about back then and how it works and all that, and how RAM works on random access memory, like our sticks of memory like that, versus the CAM memory, and how CAM memory can actually be way better than the random access memory that we actually have today and has been for the past 30 years. So we'll see. We'll see. If anyone has any questions, I do know a lot of things, so I will talk to the chat, especially after me just blabbing on about stuff. Me blabbing on is just because I've talked about this before, and it's the whole facts. It's the nothing but the facts. It's the truth, nothing but the truth. It's full honesty. I'm not sponsored by anybody, so I can literally say whatever I want. And now things are coming out into play, and everything I've said back in the past has come true, and Intel's found out about certain things that have happened. Certain content creators were just blaming Intel and not seeing that the motherboard manufacturers were the ones that were actually doing it. Yes, Intel had these parameters in place, but they've had these parameters in place since 4th gen Intel, and now since things have happened during Intel's 4th gen, where they implemented certain portions of certain things that can and cannot happen on their CPUs, they're limiting motherboard manufacturers now on their CPUs from here on out. and then anything that gets overclocked is manually by the consumer. Yeah. Go Intel. Yeah, I've talked about all this. I've had, I don't know how many videos, how many streams I've talked about all this stuff before, and I'm glad I'm getting more viewers and people that are seeing that I have been right, and hopefully there are viewers from in the past that said I was wrong about the things I've that are coming out now, and everything I've said back in the past is true. I'm hoping that maybe they see these newer videos, live streams, and say, "Wow, he was right all along," because I have been. I have been right all along about everything I say. It's only because I actually do the due diligence and read about manufacturers, each specific product from that manufacturer, from their page, and that could be motherboards, CPUs, GPUs, RAM, like everything I read up on. I know a bit about the stock markets too, and again, Intel owns 78%, maybe higher now since the investors are actually investing more money into them after this implementation that they're actually doing. Hopefully, the stock market goes back up to over 80% of them owning 80% of the stock market for CPUs. I am hoping that happens. Intel owns most of the CPU market for a reason and always has been for a reason because they are technically the best. There's a lot of hate from AMD fanboys. That's just because they bought some cheap AMD and they just think they have the best. But there's AM dip on a lot of their CPUs and GPUs. So if you're a gamer, Intel's the way to go with NVIDIA graphics card, not AMD. Again, if you're a gamer, if for certain other things AMD is better for. But if you're an actual gamer and you worry about having a high refresh rate monitor and making sure you get nice smooth gameplay at all times, Intel's the way to go. They don't have as many low frames as AMD, and AMD low frames will go way past your monitor's refresh rate, by the way, like way past to where you're seeing stutters or the game just seems like it feels off. That's because of AMD. It's just an AMD thing. It's called AM dip for a reason. Um, what do I need to get ready for the competition? I do need to get a few things ready for the competition, though. Yeah, I gotta clean my PC, like I said. So I gotta build a PC. So I gotta take the motherboard and the custom water loop out of the one small PC and put it in my big Antec case, my P100 silent case. I do need to do that. But my back is just way too sore right now, so like lifting this stuff is just brutal. So I just kind of want to take it easy. Oh, the new Intel CPUs look pretty good. 24 cores, no hyper-threading, so we'll probably be able to get some pretty good frequencies out of them just due to the fact they don't have hyper-threading enabled. So, I don't know. I don't have the money to get it. It's LGA 1851 or something like that. Yeah, LGA 1851 motherboards. Those are the new sockets. Yeah, so you have to get literally a new motherboard. I have to get a new motherboard. RAM, I'll be able to use my RAM kit still, but I would have to get a new motherboard and buy the CPU. And let's go prices. The prices for these new motherboards for the Z890s are, right now what I'm seeing is $350 for one that I would actually use. Then you'd have to get the CPU. So let's see. 285K. So the 285K, are they not right out? Are they not out? I thought they were out. Quarterly 4, 2024. We are in quarterly 4. So oh yeah, here we go. Best Buy. What's the price? What's the price? Oh, of course it's not gonna tell me the price. The Ultra 7 265 20 core is 600 though. So the 285K that I would want is not cheap, holy. It's not cheap. Oh, holy. Oh, there it is. There's the price. Yeah, $819. So it's definitely not cheap to get into the new one. But I'm pretty sure it'll be pretty good to get into. 24 core, no hyper-threading, 8 performance cores, and 16 efficiency. And the efficiency cores are like 4.6 gigahertz, so that's pretty insane. Pretty insane. Alright, thanks Frosty. Take her easy, man. And again, thanks for all your help. But yeah, that's what I have to do. I'd have to really get the new motherboard. So it really cost about, for Canadian, it cost me about $1,400 to get into the new platform. So not as much as my PC now, but I mean, that's because I have the GPU, I have the RAM, I have the NVMe's. I don't even think oh yeah, I'd have to get a new water block too for it. So that way I can use my custom water loop. So I'd probably have to spend more than 14. It'd probably be around $1,600 Canadian just to get into the new platform for Intel, which is way out of my price range. Though I should probably check up on my emails too since I'm here. If anyone has questions, please let me know. I am just going to check a couple things here. I will. Cool. That should be everything here, right? I don't have much going. Nope. Okay. Yep, not much going on that. That's good though. Sweet. Alright, so if anyone has any questions, please let me know. Do want to take out this motherboard and custom wire loop, put it in the PC though. That should be light enough for me. My back is just so sore. I thought I gave you all the permissions. That should be good. It's odd how. Okay. It's not that heavy, but my back is out, so it's really heavy. And these flies, because it's so warm out. 19 degrees now today. Oh. Need to be able to move the light too. So that way I can show. Oh, I'd have to set up a table too. I can't do that. I really can't do that right now. I'm thinking. Give me a second here. So I want you to be able to see nicely. I don't want it to look like crap. That's not terrible. I'll just move that there. Now hopefully everyone can hear me all right. And Frosty needs me for a second. Maybe I'll see what I can do for him here. I don't know if I can do anything really for him right now. We'll see. Give me 1 second. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you're just new to the channel, welcome. If you have not seen the actual beginning of this live stream, it's all about Intel's what has happened to Intel over the past couple of years, how no one knew about a lot of things, but I came out months and months ago about how it's not just Intel's fault that these CPUs are degrading, it's also the motherboard manufacturers, and the instability is also due to the RAM manufacturers saying that these speeds are good with these voltages. It's not true. So it's not just Intel's fault, it is the motherboard manufacturers. Intel found out that the motherboard manufacturers were going past what they should be going to. They had too much leniency, and now Intel is implementing new stuff into their CPUs to make sure motherboard manufacturers on stock settings cannot go into the XOC mode, which is the extreme OC mode, which is only really for if you have extreme cooling, really good water cooling to get to these kind of voltages and keep your CPU safe from degrading, because you can run 1.6 1.7 volts on your CPU, but you'd have to have liquid nitrogen or dry ice at least to make sure your CPU didn't degrade. Again, I talked about all this months ago, and it's now coming to light, and everyone's talking about it now, but I've been talking about this for months. Multiple videos, multiple live streams talking about it. So if you want to just check out the beginning of the stream, it's me talking. It's with Jay's 2 cents. So if you've never heard of him, Jay's 2 cents is a bigger content creator. He does a lot of cool custom PCs, and he came out and said, well, way back, he also said it was Intel's fault, but now he's coming out and saying, well, it is Intel's fault, but it's also motherboard manufacturers having way too much leniency, like I've been talking about for months. It's Intel did not know about what the motherboard manufacturers were doing because they were more involved with 18A and their investors on 18A, which is for like big database centers and their more expensive CPUs like their Xeon Golds and stuff like that. And now it's coming to light that these motherboard manufacturers went way above what they should have been, and a lot of things happened due to them. But due to the fact Intel allowed them to have all these leniencies and let them do whatever they want with these K CPUs, basically. Intel ate all that because Intel is actually a pretty good company. It's just that's what they are. They've always been a good company. They've owned most of the market for a reason, and now Intel's putting in stuff so that way it never happens again. And also in 2025, there's going to be the 20A, and hopefully the investors invest more money into the 20A so that way Intel can thrive even more than they are. Just give me 1 second there, Frosty. Thought I gave you full roll on it. Yeah, I did give you full roll, except for administrative privileges. Eventually, man, eventually. Okay, back to the chat. Oh, so dumb when my phone does this. I need to get a new one. Just don't have the money. Live, please go live. Go live. Live. Thank you. Alright, we are live again for the chat. So, here. Move the keyboard while I'm at it. And a couple other things here. Ooh. I've been streaming for over 3 hours, so maybe I will end the stream, take a little break. Maybe take a little break. Depends if anyone has any questions. If I have questions, let me know. Set the light. Ooh, the light back up. Go. Yeah, if no one's seen the beginning of this stream, please go look at that. That's what this stream was about. Was the beginning of it about Intel's degradation and how it wasn't just Intel's fault. Now I've been talking about this for months and months now, and now it's just coming to light that it was the motherboard manufacturers implementing the extreme OC mode into their profiles for stock settings for some reason. So again, I've been talking about this for a long time. It's just coming to light now. Intel is just finding out about it too. So if you don't know about it, then please go watch the beginning of the video. It's about Jay's 2 cents. I just was scrolling through YouTube. This morning, actually, I was going through YouTube and I saw this Jay's 2 cents video and then watched literally a few minutes of it. I was like, I've literally been talking about this for months now. Months. There's been a lot of issues with the Intel CPUs, and it's due to the fact of the motherboard manufacturers. So if you just want to watch the beginning of this stream, you can do that. I probably will be ending the stream here soon, but if anyone has any questions, I don't mind answering. Feels good to be right, but it actually sucks being right all the time about that kind of stuff. Because, like, I've had a lot of people, like I said, come on to my streams or talk on to chats on my videos and go, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I do, and it's coming to light now how much I do know about certain things. Because, again, I do the research, and a lot of people don't. And they just like to talk about stuff because somebody else is talking about it. Don't be a sheep, be the wolf. That's usually how it works, right? If you want to learn something, you got to do it yourself, not go off of what everyone else is saying, especially when those people don't know what they're talking about. Then you'll just learn something that's completely false, completely wrong, and then end up in the same situation as them. Just like all these motherboard manufacturers, how they screwed up with Intel, and now Intel's literally going, I'm going to baby you motherboard manufacturers. You're only allowed to do so much with your stock settings. All of you can be the same now. None of you will have the best motherboard. All your motherboards will be the same. or be maxed out to being the same. So if any motherboard manufacturers actually that come out and say my motherboard does this or that from here on out, they're lying, by the way. They're limited to what Intel says they can do by hardware inside the actual CPU as well, and on actual could be actual contracts with the motherboard manufacturers. Because like I said, Intel with their K CPUs with the motherboard manufacturers gave them too much leniency, and they didn't know what the issue was, and it's come to light that was the motherboards. Yeah, it has. It sure has, man. It's been quite some time. And if anyone wants to donate to the channel, I do have a PayPal donate since I'm not sponsored by anybody. That is the only way I can make money off this YouTube right now since I'm not monetized either. I am a third of the way there to being monetized. So hopefully here in the future I do get monetized. But if you just want to help out the channel, I do have a PayPal. You don't have to, of course, but if you have that couple extra dollars that you don't mind actually helping out the channel and the community, it's very, very thoughtful if you do that. But I'm probably going to end the stream probably here soon. So if anybody has any questions, please let me know now, because I'm going to be ending the stream so I can go relax. I did throw out my back a couple days ago, and it is still not doing so hot. And it looks like nobody has any questions, so I'm going to end the stream there. So again, thank you everyone for subscribing during this stream. The streams lately have been awesome. So many new subscribers. Again, thank you all to my old subscribers that have been with me from the beginning and have been with me since the beginning. You have been awesome. Anyone that has subscribed recently, thank you very much. I hope you guys are learning something from my videos, my live streams, and have realized that I do know a thing or two and a very trustworthy and honest guy. So that's all I try to be. Hopefully my content you guys like as well. Here in the future, of course, it will be a little bit better than this, but it's all progress, right? So again, thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to get her done.